my email, my bank account. Yeah, but yeah, she was pretty nice about it. Yeah, we're doing pretty good bench piece
You know,
there.
I sometimes have to laugh because, like, if you, like, log in on your Entropy and you see who's streaming there, and you just think to yourself, I feel like we're pretty safe sometimes compared to the regulars who are on there.
Oh man, yeah, yeah, no doubt.
So, sometimes it's nice to do business with a polite Canadian, art critic and artist.
Yeah, it's nice to be optical. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's. I mean, not totally. I mean, I'm in some pretty hairy group chats, but
Oh, same.
like but I mean, especially being with default, like it gives you at least something. But
I still couldn't believe that I had to laugh at that because I got the email and it was like Gio somehow doesn't know that she's a lesbian, and I was like, how did I know that? And Gio didn't. The
I
mystery to
totally
me.
I totally forgot that Katie Herzog um had that article, The Erasure of Lesbians. And
Yeah,
I'm
she
like,
has a whole shtick about lesbian
yeah.
erasure.
No, it's true. Canadians aren't polite. That is a meme. I mean, some of them are, but like I've actually never noticed a difference. I hate to say it, maybe it's just like because I'm biased, but I've actually noticed that people are a lot politer in the States than they are in America. Like even in Pittsburgh or wherever I go to, like some places in New York or some places in Ohio, like it's like I don't know. Well, I know maybe not Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh they're known for being like particularly salty. But like even in New York, or like even in like especially if you go to like anywhere that's like more rural, people are better. I don't know. People
So
just are
true.
kinder, I guess. Like even like although I should say I've never been to New York City. I've always been to I've been to upstate New York, and I've been to places like that. But that's like different. That's basically one day I'll go to New York City. Um but like, Ohio is really good, although Ohio has its problems. Uh Rural Pennsylvania is good. Some friends of ours live in rural
I know
Pennsylvania
that
too.
Ohio does have its statewide infrastructure demographic issues, but
Oh yeah.
I've always associated Ohio hatred as just an internet meme.
Yeah, it's like a metaphor for like these are rednecks but in a northern state.
Like, I just feel like it's just that Rust Belt Midwest hate that's been just somehow mimetically focused into the state of Ohio, a
Yeah.
state that has given birth to more astronauts and aeronautical, pioneers than any other state in the country.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, alongside a rich political history on the national stage in American history, and then there's a really cool Air Force museum there with a lot of some experimental aircraft and things like that. So I don't know. I have a highly positive view of Ohio, only being there a few times in my life. So I may just have that touristy bias, but
Yeah.
I West hate.
Is Ohio the one that you absolutely have to win the presidency?
Yes,
Or is
it's
it
one of those
one of
states.
them? What are the
Ohio
rest?
and Ohio, Florida,
Michigan? No.
Michigan. Well, I guess since Trump, yeah, Michigan, Ohio, Florida, Nevada, Arizona. Those are kind of like important. That and Virginia and Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the big states that you got to win now.
I noticed Nevada's really like trying to like boost itself. Like they have all these sports teams now. They're gonna get like a new football team or baseball team or something. I know that
Didn't they
it,
just move a? Isn't the Raiders now the Las Vegas Raiders?
yes, yeah, but it's gonna
Okay.
take a while to build a new stadium. But
Okay.
for example, with the Vegas Golden Knights, they like went all out. Like they plastered all of Las Vegas with free merchandise. They have a great, from what I know, people that have been there, they have a great arena. And of course, it took them only 5 years to win the cup, which was previously, oh wait, 8 years or 5 years to win the Stanley Cup. Like that was previously unheard of. So they really did go all out. And from what I hear, they're really going all out with this football, with a football team or
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, but it's going to take time to build a new stadium. But yeah, unfortunately, Ohio is dying. Unfortunately, hopefully JD Vance can turn the tide. But I don't know. A lot of people are
Well, he's a
skeptical of
senator, not
JD.
really the governor. He doesn't have as
Oh,
much
he's not a
sway.
go. Yeah, who's the governor?
That's a great question. Is it still DeWine?
Is it
Oh
a
yeah,
Democrat or
it is still
Republican?
Mark DeWine.
Oh, he's a Democrat.
No, he's a Republican. He's just not a great one.
Oh, oh no!
He's
Like
just
that's
not a good one.
there's so many things you could do in Ohio. Like for when people like stereotype the Ohio as being dumb rednecks, like they do have like like they do have a lot of universities, and they have like Franciscan University, and a lot of trad cats come from Ohio apparently, and a
There's
lot
a
of
pretty
Orthodox people.
sizable Catholic population there.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Ohio, like unfortunately, like again, it's the Rust Belt phenomenon, along with the Appalachians, hit it like a nuclear bomb. So, there's not much you can do unless you're willing to have like a total. I think you were talking about this in group chat, Prude, a total restructuring of the economy.
Well, I
Which
mean,
is,
on a domestic level, at least in the 2022 gubernatorial election, I mean, he won with 62% of the vote. Like, whether it's the future of Ohio Republican Party politics, I do not know enough about. I'm not going
oh
to
my
comment, but I
god!
mean, it seems to be a
Did you see the chat?
safely reliable place. Oh, the Nothing Burger.
No, no. Did you see the chat?
Oh no, no. Oh, sorry. I thought you were referring to.
You're lucky. It's one of my favorite movies, Yoma.
Oh, there you go.
No, but what? Listen, Sorry to cut you off, Prude. I wanted you to finish your point, but like, I don't know what to say. That's original. Like, people have like done a million 2001. Well,
Hey,
I'll try
hey,
my best.
hey! Shut up and take the money and
I
give
know,
them a
I know,
quality review.
I know. Right? Hockey in states with no snow.
Oh, dude, it's so bad. Do you want a fun little you want a fun little weird black pill about hockey? I guess it's a black pill if you're gonna view it that way. But one of the fastest growing college intramural sport in Texas, at least when I was in college, was hockey.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because the Dallas Stars.
Well, not just the Dallas Stars, but I mean like
Oh, they have a good college. They have good college teams. Yeah.
there's a minor league hockey team in El Paso that does good for God's
Yeah,
sakes.
that's right. I think they're the farm team. Well, I know that
The what are they called? The Rhinos? Yeah, there you go.
Dallas. Yeah, it's one of their farm teams. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So
They
there
have
you
they
go.
have an AHL team too that's pretty good. But
Just absolutely wild.
please, yeah, I would love $100 to review Goodfellas. I've only seen Goodfellas like 500 times in my life, so
Bill
give Gio
Wilson,
money,
give Gio
please.
money. He complains.
No, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. We'll get to the super chats at the end, but I'm very
Penultimo,
grateful.
I'm not surprised. I was simply telling to the guy earlier in chat who was depressed that states that don't have ice and snow are seeing a burst in hockey. No, I'm not surprised at all.
Well,
I live in the most
yeah.
commercialized like country for sports. I'm not surprised by anything. I
No,
just wish that Formula One for Americans was more popular, but sadly that'll never take off.
yeah, I know, but like NASCAR, well, you know, but no, but that's what I mean. Like, I'm trepidatious to quote Rambot because like there's been so many video essays about 2001 that it's almost well, not almost, it is intimidating. So I'm gonna have to like really
How
dig
many of
deep.
our guys have done video
Devin has
essays?
probably done it. I
Has
mean,
I'm sure Devin's done one. Has Morgoth done one? I gotta go check.
yes, I believe so. He did one with
2001 Space. No,
he
he
did
did
one
the
with Endeavor.
classic. Yeah, he did the classic movies
Yeah.
review stream.
I love how Endeavor he went to war recently with Mike Enoch on Telegram. He's
Yeah,
right
they
though. I
streamed
maybe
it a
I
year ago. There you go.
yeah. I may disagree with Endeavor on Ukraine, but like he did bring up a good point. Not that I say I completely disregard Enoch's point about Palestine, but it is kind of like I don't know. I just think that maturity is realizing that the enemy of our enemy is not our friend, sort of deal. Like it's but
Correct.
anyways, not to counter signal Mike Enoch, but I'm just saying like it
20,
was pretty
20
funny.
yeah, episode 25 of classic movies, Space Odyssey. So there you go. If you want to listen to that, it's 2 hours long. Enjoy. But Gio will do his best to
I'll
give
do
us
my
a quality
best.
review.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think like I could get into the metaphysics of it. I know that um a lot of theory cells have reviewed 2001. So
I feel
yes,
like
I have seen Gummo.
it's baby's first film critic, your big review movie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, it is true, but I guess like I'll have to come up with something more original. But I finally got a Canticle for Leibowitz, so I'm gonna start reading
It's a
it.
great book.
Yeah, I
Great
think
book.
this week will be the week I do the shunning. I'm finally gonna record it. I'm almost done reading it because like I just been stopping and starting it, and it's kind of like, you know. Um, but anyways,
I
what
see
was your
Twitter.
point?
I see Twitter leftists argue that Fight Club is a Core film. Okay, so the fun thing about that
I could see their
term,
point, but it's not.
I see their point. Sure, it's funny, but also when they talk about like the pantheon of say like Core video games, and it's every popular game that they had when they were teenagers or early 20s, impressionable young men, and it's like Fallout New Vegas, like Dragon's Dogma and Skyrim. Is just so really what I'm hearing is that
Tells you
there's some,
something, doesn't it?
well, it tells me that there's an RPG element to it here in the same way that uh, New Vegas has like far right fans of the game, and at the
Yeah.
same time, there's like a bunch of trans heart Fallout New Vegas. I think that it's just everything that an autistic young man would play. Absolutely, in the same way
Oh
that
yeah.
they target our autists. They target our autists, and I'm reminded of an old Nick Land tweet when he was still on Outsideness that the regime is anti-autism, therefore I am pro-autism.
Oh yeah. There you. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah.
It was good. But anyways, you had a take about oh, what was it about the elections or Ohio or I forget.
Well, we were just talking about how Ohio is, and we'll see, right? There's some people were teasing that Trump might be announcing his VP pick tonight, maybe not.
Yeah, maybe
So
not.
we were talking about this in Pat Casey's chat earlier today about who would be good VP picks. So yeah, the autist normie psychopath trichotomy. Now that would be a fun video essay to write. That would be fun. I should
Wire
write that
hockey
video
playoffs
essay.
in the summer because the playoffs are like a whole season. And I think if Gary Bettman wants to, like, he wants 40 teams, you're going to have to split the cup. You're going to have an Eastern Conference Cup and a Western Conference Cup. There's no way because it's not fair that only, 18 teams make the playoffs out of 32, but imagine 40 teams. So it's just incredible. Like, I don't know. But yeah, like, it's very grueling to, like, win the to win the cup because you have to go through 4 rounds. And if all of those rounds get to 7 games, like, oh my god, that's brutal. That's anyways. 9% of the way done. This City of Strength. That was one of my old man's favorite books when he was growing up.
It's a great book.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's
Although
told me I read it a long time ago. I read parts of it a long time ago, like when I was a kid. So but anyways, we were gonna say
I think one of my favorite fiction pieces that Lewis has ever done is still The Great Divorce. It's one of my
the
favorites.
Great Divorce?
Yeah.
What's that about?
It's about heaven and hell and
Whoa.
a very gray, joyless city.
Oh my god.
It's good. I quite liked it. It's a very short read. You can read it in one sitting. It'll take you probably, I don't know, 2 hours tops. Probably less than that. It's like 118 pages. I don't know.
And speaking of books, oh my god, why am I even mentioning this?
Yeah, how's your book going along, Gio?
Listen, it's out of my hands because it's up to Matthew to edit huge parts of it.
But you're
So
done? Are you saying you're done?
no,
And
we're
Matthew's
not done.
editing?
We're almost
Oh,
halfway done editing. Yeah. So, Steven Stamkos left. Well, Stamkos was getting old, and like honestly, Florida is gonna have to go through a rebuild because a lot of top guys left. But anyways, speaking of books, me and Default recorded, and it's out today. A shorter episode. It's only like 50 minutes, but it's great. We actually ended up talking about Goa.
you're ready to talk about erotica?
We reviewed Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Talked. No, you're not going to pay me $100 to review that. No, Bill Watson, I'm not doing that because the films you pay me to watch has to have like at least some intellectual like I wouldn't even be
Intellectual
talking
value.
about.
You need so what you need to do is you need to put a YouTube short up that says I
No,
will
but even
review
if
anything
it's
for $100 with
no, okay, no, sorry. it doesn't have to have intellectual value, but it can't be prawn. Like that particular anime is basically just outright prawn. So you
You
want
heard
me
the
to review
man.
White
Nope.
Chicks? Where's Brent Taylor? He would pay me $100 to review White Chicks. He would do that.
There you go.
So yeah, but Bill Wilson, if you wanted me to review an anime film that isn't like prawn and disgusting, then I probably would. I would actually. I actually recently got through watching Hajime no Ippo. That's a great boxing shonen.
Mm.
I actually liked the English dub because I think the actors they had for the English dub, they fit the character of Ippo Makanauchi especially. So Hajime no Ippo, you could watch it all on YouTube. It's great boxing shonen anime. And I really like it because every story of the boxers that Ippo faces, there's like a similar backstory. It's not like the sort of like stupid kind of like Western good versus evil Disney nonsense. It's more of like every single fighter has their own cross to carry and they're fighting for a reason. And it's not like, it's totally different than any sort of like Western hero's journey crap. I hate to say it, you know. Specifically Disney hero's journey crap. How much you review an entire anime series? Probably $300 to $400 range.
There you go. I think it is sort of important to contrast that though with respects to the like Western media is that the hero's journey, and I think a lot of it has to do with George Lucas in the
Mm-hmm.
original Star Wars, because again, you read Lucas's foreword to his or the updated Hero of a Thousand Faces, and then you actually read the book and you're like, oh man, we just cribbed this straight out for the movie. But I mean, for American cinema up until very recently,
Yeah.
so true. Winning the lottery and forcing Gio to quit the internet by flooding him with optical media reviews. I love how you just add Groiper at the end of anything, and that long-winded sentence turns into a joke.
Yeah, it's
But like
amazing.
for the Western media, like the hero's journey is turned into the technical, standardized formula for filmmaking. Outside of the West, not so much. At least not
Yeah.
yet. We'll see.
Well, I think because we do have sort of a different ontology fundamentally to storytelling. And I think that as much as there can be a great sort of depiction of good versus evil, because it is so close to the Western psyche, and whether you want to argue because of Christianity or not, or even in the pagan world, it was like that with various tales. I do think that at least for a time, even within media that was specifically designed for children in the West, there was sort of a recognition of a moral gray area, and that there was a recognition that everyone has their own sort of struggles to overcome. But nowadays, you have to have, because of the environment that we live in, and because of the politics, especially of that environment, you have to have this like grinding clarity to everything, this like unyielding positivity of absolute good versus absolute evil. Whereas if you watch a series like Hajime no Ippo, you'll see that like that's not actually reality when you step into a boxing ring or any ring for that matter. That actually every single person has their own struggle towards greatness and to escape the demons of their past. And notice how Ippo Makanauchi, he never demonizes any opponent. You know, none of them. He always has a respect for them. That's incredible. Like I cried, man. I cried. It's an incredible series. And it's and also like the early 2000s nostalgia. The soundtrack's pretty good. You know,
Mm.
like you don't get that stuff nowadays. Nowadays, I mean, I've heard from people like I haven't watched like as many recent stuff, but I've heard that even anime's taken a turn towards slop. Um, but who knows, man? Maybe well, when I interview Solion soon, I'll ask him about it.
There you go. I'm
Yeah, I'm
looking
interviewing
forward to
him on
that
Thursday.
episode of Content Minded.
I'm praying to God he's seen my streams, you know, and he knows what I look like.
I think he knows.
He probably does. Yeah. He's not gonna go without researching.
You're kind of an
So.
old head, Gio. I think most people know what you look like.
Yeah. It's but no,
I think you'll be fine.
Out of all the interviews, I'm probably, as much as it might be an optical, I'm actually well, no, I shouldn't say that. I'm excited for every interview I do, but this is one I'm particularly looking forward to.
Why is that?
Well, I think because I always wanted to interview like an like the Zoomer anime writers type, and I think that it's such a different perspective, and
Mm.
he does have a lot of brilliant ideas, and so I think that it's a breath of fresh air than just interviewing other old heads. You know what I mean? So
Well, yeah, that's
uh,
true.
yeah, so we'll see how it goes. But anyways, we
I'm
wanted to.
interviewing Shane Swenson next week.
Oh, you?
Yeah,
Whoa,
so Shane and I get to talk shop for an hour and a half. It'll be fun.
nice. I wanted to interview him for a while now, but then I just he was restoring this monastery, or he was restoring this church, and I just never got the chance. So maybe we'll do that. But then again, like I don't know, I always like at least casually lurk other interviews with people just so I'm not covering like the same ground. But sometimes it's kind of hard if someone's
I have
known.
to do the same because he when we were scheduling, he's like, I can't do this week. I'm already doing someone else's show, and I was like, oh well, I hope that comes out soon so I can go see it,
Yeah,
so I don't
creep it. Yeah.
cover the same ground. Because that is the worst part when you interview someone or like you're doing a book tour. And I was really glad because like when Jeremy Carl was doing his book tour, I was like, we recorded so early in his book tour when it came out. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
thank God, all my stuff sounds fresh compared to him
Whoever
hitting the
else.
same talking points over and over again.
Yeah, including
Um,
bigger people that'll.
which I mean is
Mhm.
always a good thing. You want to have like the unique take, even if you don't get the most views on it. In the same way that if I were to get Orrin to talk about his book, or even have him here to talk about his book, I would want to make sure that we can hit him harder. I think on the because it's not that book's not for us, so it'd be fun to
Yeah, yeah,
get
yeah.
him
Of
from the
course.
right rather than say like the boomer the boomer
I
whisperer
wonder,
that he
like,
is.
has any like big outlet like Fox News level interviewed Jeremy Carl? I'm sure they have probably have,
I don't know if Fox has interviewed Jeremy, but I know that most of the
or even like hostile reviewers like in the New Yorker,
it's a great question. No, there was some like I think
the
some black
Atlantic.
I think some black activist reviewed his book,
Oh, I saw that. Yeah,
and his
Jeremy.
whole conclusion was just like double down and blame Whitey more, which was like, I wonder how this guy felt if he didn't have breakfast this morning, but that's
Oh
many
man,
such cases.
that's funny though. Like like Jeremy's like kind of fearless. He like doesn't care. He'll just like he'll
No,
like
and
he'll quote tweet them. He's like, yeah, you don't like my book, okay? Like it's
yeah, no, Jeremy's got he's pretty good when it comes to that stuff.
oh man.
I do
Anyways, need those super chats.
so speaking of black activists, I have a fun work story to tell, and then we're gonna get into the article.
All right, yeah, we're gonna do the article first, then we're gonna
Yeah,
get
we're
to
gonna do the
the
article first, then we can
French
do all
election and Trump.
then we
The
can do
Trump,
all the election punditry
yeah,
and drama slop
because
because we've
you had some takes on it, the recent election news. So
I mean, we've got takes for takes on an election news. It's election season. You're gonna get tired of us talking about it, and you're gonna pay us to
yeah,
shut up. And if we're lucky, you'll pay us to shut up permanently. But
it's you to review old DA episodes.
oh god,
That'd be so great. Oh man.
ugh. No, yeah, learn to appreciate irony and that people want to give you money. That's how I should look
Yeah.
at it. Be grateful
Yeah.
about it. Life's a gift. And so part of my job requires me to like go out and travel and to these small towns and to assess their needs for projects and grants and plan, administer, and execute them, and get these people the things that they need for infrastructure, economic development, all that jazz.
Oh yeah.
And so I go out and I drive like 2 hours with my coworker, who used to be a former cop before now he does a lot of transportation stuff. And we meet with the mayor. He's this like old frazzled white guy. He's just like, hey, our money's tight. Anything that you can do to help us out. We need to work on our water and our sewage. And it's like, okay, here's how we can lay out this plan. I said, you have an engineering grant you got already laid out. Fantastic. Things are moving in the right direction. Like we can probably get you everything in the ball rolling within a year once we get the news about that planning grant. He says it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And then his city councilman, who is very active in the community and I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking like a small town of 2,000 people. And the
It's a
loud
village. That's like yeah.
yeah, it's a small town. I mean, and it's called a town for a reason, I think, on how they have it listed on their charter documents or whatever. But anyways, like So they have this middle-aged, very loud, very flamboyant black guy on city council. And then keep in mind, I'm in the middle of nowhere, and you just kind of have to ask yourself, how did you get here? And so he proceeds to take myself and my coworker on this tour of the town to assess all the other things, from the roads to the schools to the parts of the neighborhood that need to be touched up on that are publicly owned by the land and the rest. And then he starts talking about the land he owns. And then he starts talking about how he's like on the side a preacher of a church. And then on the other hand, he starts talking about this is already a very flamboyant, sweet as a sugar plum gay guy. Like, you can tell. He
You could
won't
tell
ever.
he's gay.
Oh yeah, in the voice alone, it was just so obvious. And then proceeds to tell us he was a cheerleader in high school. And this guy's like 41, so he's like he graduated like at the turn of the century, so like 2001, I think is what he said. And I'm trying to keep my composure in the front seat, because obviously, like, this town is someone that we want to help and support, but I can't just laugh
Yeah.
at a very gay black guy who's telling us about his life story. And
You can't
this
just be like, "Oh wait, I'm sorry. Listen, I'm an
Right.
internet racist. I can't I can't
I'm
contain
trying, yeah,
myself."
again, trying to hide that power levels, that what I was doing. And then he proceeds to like ask about, like, well, what should he do with his life? Because he owns some of these plots in his land, but he's also a preacher, but he also isn't married. And he's like, oh, I have no wife. And it's like, I don't have a spouse for that either. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, so like, you no wife, no quote unquote husband, you're a preacher of a church, and you're using its like tax exempt status to like cover what else that you do with your property equity. So this guy's like flamboyantly bragging to myself and my coworker, who's an ex-cop, about the fact that he's committing financial fraud. And then he proceeds to tell us, he says, well, I don't know where to go. And my coworker's like, you ever tried going to the Small Business Administration? They'll give you money for nothing because you're black. And he's like, is that true? And I was like, I had to that's when I finally
Oh
broke.
my god!
I
Oh
broke
my
because I was
god!
like, how do you not know, as a like
No, but your
middle-aged.
coworker just blurted it out
Yeah,
like,
yeah, my coworker just blurted it out. And it was what killed me though, is I was like,
"Oh
how do you as like a
my."
how do you as like a middle-aged black guy not know that like the system is rigged for you? N- But like, so we were just
He
trying
must
to get him
have grew up in such a white neighborhood. Like, that's
we were
incredible.
trying to get him out of the like car as soon as possible so he could stop telling us where to go. And it was like the inverse of driving Miss Daisy, except it's a very flamboyant gay black preacher in the middle
It's
of
not, yeah,
nowhere.
it's not Danny Glover. It's
No, no. Well, I mean, it's not that kind of. He's not LARPing as a Korean girl on Tumblr circa 2011. I'm sure that he wanted to be a
no,
Korean
he's
girl
like,
circa 2011.
who is in, I'm thinking of, who was it, Chris Rock, or who was it that was in, Fifth Element?
Yeah, it
You
was
know
Chris
him?
Rock.
That was Chris Rock.
That was
Okay,
Chris
yeah.
Rock.
So this is like Chris Rock in Fifth
Oh
Element.
yeah, I'm talking like Chris Rock in the Fifth Element levels of flamboyant,
This
who
is
is
like
a
George
who.
Santos level, but George Santos is a
Oh yeah,
black guy.
it's George Santos levels of gay. And I I just couldn't believe it. This guy is just like openly blabbing. He's like, "Well, you're my friend, so I'm just going to tell you about what I'm doing." And
Sorry,
I'm
Chris Tucker. Chris
Chris
Tucker
Tucker.
was
Thank you.
Chris Rock.
Sorry, not Chris
Chris,
Rock.
thank you,
Chris
Wire
Tucker.
Matcher.
Thank you. Thank you. So he's
Thank
just
you,
and
JN.
so he's just like casually like explaining his like what he wants to do with this place and how he wants to be quote unquote for the people. And I'm like, how are you
Oh,
being for the people if you're enriching yourself and openly committing financial fraud that would get you totally in trouble if you ever get your church audited by the
oh
IRS?
man, that would screw up their tax exempt status and
Oh, exactly.
everything.
But he uses that as his cover, so he doesn't pay as much money. And so
Oh,
eventually we got him out, and my coworker is just like, so I pray to God we never get subpoenaed, because we just listened to him openly confess. And I was just like, yeah, I know. That's why you told him to start an LLC and do all the other stuff that a lot of blacks in America do to get free money. And he's like, yeah,
Mm.
because if not, that guy's going to jail. And I'm trying to like hold back my thoughts. I was like, well, if we didn't tell him that, eventually he would go to jail. But that's a whole other discussion. And so it's just,
He seemed
uh,
like a nice guy, though.
he seemed like again, he's been adamant that the mayor meet with us. He's been making a lot of these
I'm
things
not
move.
cucking by saying that,
I couldn't help but again. So when I jokingly tell people when like at church or whatever, they're like, well, what do you like your job? And I'm like, I'm 2 degrees off from living some weird version of Parks and Recreation, and this is a little slice of what I do for a living.
Oh
And
my
somehow out in the
god.
middle of nowhere, there's a flamboyant gay black preacher who's committing fraud and wants to get a new sewer system for the community. And I'm just
Oh
like,
my
this
god.
is small town American government work that I do, and I just can't help but laugh at that a lot. And so
My
it's part and parcel of my life. But honest to God, my face hurt so bad yesterday on that drive home back to the office from where we were. I hadn't laughed that hard in a really long time. I had not. I was like smirking. I was smiling. It genuinely hurt my face, and it's hurting my face now because I'm smiling, talking about it, and trying not to laugh.
Look at Pac-Man. By the way, Josh, come back to Twitter, man. Pac-Man is now reporting a gay black man to the IRS. Bless you, per YouTube here for this. Yeah,
I mean,
press F in the chat, prude cucked.
I probably will. Let's not kid ourselves.
No, but like, how are you gonna report? I guess I don't know. But is he like defrauding his congregation, or is he just defrauding the government?
I mean, he's openly just not doing his paperwork right. Like, it would be considered fraud if there were criminal damages or something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, as long as he's not
fucker.
like, as long as he's not fleecing his congregation. Okay, stop with the F, guys. I'm only joking. Like, as long as he's not fleecing the congregation, like some kind of like.
Oh, I'm sure that he is, just like
type of-
every Malcolm X style Jesus house probably ever did.
Yeah,
But,
true,
like, come on.
true. I mean, I don't know, man.
That town
like,
is like majority white, which makes it even more
Yeah.
funny that like this progressive, flamboyant gay black preacher is on city council. I'm like, how did you get elected here?
But you never know. He could be like right wing, like, you know, he could be like a homofash. You never know. I'm kidding. I mean,
watch
what are the odds that like a gay black preacher is going to be like?
Watch my DMs explode as there's just like, oh, he's been a mutual, or he's been like following you and I for a while. It'd be really funny.
I know that guy. He listens to the stream.
What would Peter Rex do? Well, Peter Rex, we're gonna politely report him to the authorities. What do you think I'm gonna do, EL?
I love the best was Peter Rex. I shouldn't even say it on air. He tweeted, "We're no longer going to send you back." Like, that's even scarier than we're gonna. That's like a million times scarier than like we're gonna send you back. We are no longer.
We can't go too far into that without talking about that whole situation.
Oh my!
But I did notice that the coal mine Canary had been reactivated.
Yeah. There's too much though. There's too much coal. That canary died a long time ago.
No, he got more birds.
He got more.
He got more canaries. He found more canaries at a Chinese wet market, and that coal mine canary is black and gay graper. I mean, there's probably a lot of those.
Black and gay graper.
Let's not kid ourselves. There's probably a lot of those.
No, but can you imagine if the guy was actually like, apart from being like a gay black man who's a preacher, imagine if he's like a total like MAGA chud. He's like, and I'm telling you, we gotta send them back. Like, that'd be amazing. That'd be like everything. That would be like the dissident right version of, you know, like the based black man.
Racists in cars getting coffee. I should make that a TV show.
Oh man. Ego baby.
Considering how many canaries died in a month with the European elections. Oh,
man.
It's rough.
It's rough. It's tough.
Do you know what else is rough? Talking about postmodernity.
Okay, we're gonna talk about the elections after and all that stuff. So let's talk. Okay, we usually save the meat. We usually save the steak before the sizzle. But now we're gonna go for the steak and hopefully.
But we're gonna go straight for the steak. We're gonna pull it out like it's fajitas that were just freshly microwaved at Applebee's. You're gonna hear the sizzle, and we're gonna read.
Yeah, and need those super chats, please. I beg of you. And also the Xanthropy link that's pinned in the comments. So please give with your heart. So this is a collection. Sneed deeply. Actually, that's pretty good. So let's go to present screen share. Here we go. Okay, so this Hull Foster is a famed art critic, but here we have an essay from some of the. It's a collection of essays called "The Anti-Aesthetic Essays on Postmodern Culture" from some of like truly the giants that aren't necessarily art critics. Of course, they're mostly, philosophy professors and so forth. Hall Foster is a top art critic and I believe a professor of art and aesthetic theory. So here we have like some of the big names like Habermas, Frederick Jameson, Baudrillard, Edward Said.
Crimp.
Yeah, Crimp. Yeah,
No one talks about Douglas Crimp these days.
Yeah, I know. That essay is actually pretty good. You'd like that one, Prude, on the museum's ruins. Rosalind Krauss.
He only died a few years ago. Like, you'd think that he would be more.
Yeah, he would be more well known.
Which kills me because like what makes him well known is his book on AIDS.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
like no one cares about the fact that he wrote a good essay on photography and postmodernism, but it's just like, oh yeah, total queer. But then instead, he lives long enough to die of cancer and not AIDS, but still.
I know that in queer theory they still read him, but in terms of like popularization, it's not this like. He's not as
much of this stuff.
Yeah, he's not even as popular as like.
I know who Douglas Crimp is. This is what happens when you take too much philosophy classes for credits.
Yeah, he's not as popular as Stave or like Pat Califia or but anyways.
Hackman Respecter says he's reaching into his little rubber groiper coin purse. I don't know why that's so funny to me. I just like little rubber coin purse. That's little rubber groiper coin purse. That's so funny.
So this is the essay that we're reading from Jurgen Habermas. And Habermas is surprisingly still alive. I can't believe that. He's like 90-something, isn't he?
He'll soon. Noam Chomsky's waiting for him.
Yeah, Noam Chomsky. Yeah. Wait, is Habermas dead or he's still alive? I believe he's still alive.
You just said he was still alive. I have to assume that you were telling me the truth.
No, I think he's still alive.
Yep, 95 years old. Born in 1929. He is not dead.
I think he's retired though. You don't hear much.
Yeah.
Well, that's like
that is a face that says "Please me die."
That's like Thomas Sowell retired a few years ago. Because anyways.
Sowell is close.
He's like almost 100.
He's got to be in his 90s, right, Thomas?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got to be. He is, if Google wants to work with me here, because I don't know his age, actually. I think he's in his 90s. He's 94. He's born in 1930.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, holy cow.
Whoa.
Wasn't Habermas still in the...
80.
Oh, boy.
Chomsky's like, what, 87?
No, did we finally get confirmation of his death, or did he...
No, he's still alive.
Okay, so they took him home. Yeah, he's 95. He was born in 28.
Oh, well, so we don't have to wait long. Yeah.
Just all the other pomos, you can do like the Heaven's Gate thing, but then it like slowly fades from like welcome to the pearly gates, and then like flames start billowing out.
Oh my god.
Anyways, the Angel of Death. I've been waiting for so long. I wish Kevorkian took me years ago.
Oh man.
Modernity, an incomplete project by Jurgen Habermas.
I forget which postmodernist actually wrote about Kevorkian. It may have been Jean-Luc Nancy, or it may have been I think even Baudrillard wrote about Kevorkian back in the day. But anyways, so this is mostly about art and architecture, but it does bring up a lot of good points about postmodernism itself. So let's read from the beginning. In 1980, architects were admitted to the Biennale in Venice, which is, of course, in the art world, the #1 Biennale. Following the painters and filmmakers, the note sounded the first architectural Biennale was out of disappointment. I would describe it by saying that those who exhibited in Venice formed an avant-garde of reversed fronts. I mean that they sacrificed the tradition of modernity in order to make room for a new historicism. Upon this occasion, a critic of the German newspaper Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung advanced a thesis whose significance reached beyond this particular event. It is a diagnosis of our time. Postmodernity definitely presents itself as anti-modernity. Very interesting. This statement describes an emotional current of our times which has penetrated all spheres of intellectual life. It has placed on the agenda theories of post Enlightenment, post modernity, and even of post history. So, right off the bat, we know what we're dealing with in this essay. So,
Yep.
from history, we know the phrase the ancients and the moderns. Let me begin by defining these concepts. The term modern has a long history, one which has been investigated by Hans Robert Joss. The word modern in Latin form, modernus, was used for the first time in the late 5th century in order to distinguish the present, which has become officially Christian, from Roman and pagan past. With a varying content, the term modern again and again expresses the consciousness of an epoch that relates itself to the past of antiquity in order to view itself as the result of a transition from old to new. But I would say that there's even like you would figure post enlightenment and anti-modernity is like strictly like right-wing chud stuff. But there is like a left-wing version. Like arguably certain forms of Marxism acknowledge the when Marx talked about primitive communism going, and of course, Rousseauian thought is very much like that same, pristine state of humanity before the corruption of modernity and capital and so forth. Um, some writers restrict the concept of modernity to the Renaissance, but this is historically too narrow. People consider themselves modern during the period of Charles the Great in the 12th century, as well as in France of the late 17th century, at the time of the famous Courrier d'Enchant de das Modernes. This is to say, the term modern appears and reappeared exactly during this period in Europe when the consciousness of a new epoch formed itself through a renowned relationship to the ancients. Whenever, moreover, antiquity was considered a model to be recovered through some kind of imitation. The spell which the classics of the ancient world cast upon the spirit of the later times was first dissolved with the ideas of the French Enlightenment. Specifically, the idea of being modern by looking back to the ancients changed with the belief inspired by modern science in the infinite progress of knowledge and the infinite advance towards social and moral betterment. Another form of modern consciousness was formed in the wake of this change. The Romantic modernists sought to oppose the antique ideal of the classics. He looked for a new historical epoch and found in the idealized Middle Ages. However, the new ideal age, established early in the 19th century, of course, with art, you have the Pre-Raphaelites, would go into this, did not remain a fixed ideal. In the course of the 19th century, there emerged out of this romantic spirit the radicalized consciousness of modernity, which freed itself from all specific historical ties. This most recent modernism simply, so you notice how before Renaissance modernism or the ideal of the romanticists, that they were sort of taking inspiration from the past. Now we have in the 20th century a sort of radical break. Modernism is simply mean an abstract opposition between tradition and the present. And we are in a way still the contemporaries of this kind of aesthetic modernity, which first appeared in the midst of the 19th century. The sort of like nobody was ever good back then. The grandfather was always, everyone was always repressed. Since then, the distinguishing mark of works which count as modern is the new, which will be overcome and made obsolete through the novelty of the next style. But while this, which is merely stylish, will soon become outmoded, that which is modern preserves a secret tie to the classical. Of course, whichever can survive time has always been considered to be a classic. But the emphatically modern document no longer borrows this power of being a classic from the authority of the past epoch. Instead, a modern work becomes a classic because it has once been authentically modern. Our sense of modernity creates its own self-enclosed canons of being classic. In this sense, we speak in the view of the history of modern art of classical modernity. The relationship between modern and classical has definitely lost a fixed historical reference. So, I mean, we mentioned 2001. That could be like a classic modern film, if that makes sense. Um, but, Oh, Prude is gone? Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
You
hello.
back?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
am. Internet cut out for a second. Do we still? Do you think that we've lost his fixed historical reference? I mean, history as a discipline still has its eras of history still laid out. I mean, you still have a pretty well fixed definition on what constitutes the early modern era, for example. Um,
Yeah.
about 1500 to 1850. Then you get into the modern era. Gio just hears "so true," and his head doesn't even have to wait for Prue to say it and proceed.
I was getting worried. I'm like, Prue, you there? Oh man. No, there still is classical periods, but I guess what Habermas is saying is that it really, what do we mean by a modern canon that becomes a sort of classic? Is it modern because it has a sense of originality or the new, or is it situated within the modern condition, or is it simply that it's like strictly a time period by which we fall into? So yeah.
Well, even a
But
period of I'm not gonna read that one out loud there, EL.
no.
Um,
But what
no,
makes this modern though? Like, is it still that I guess he's trying to get at, like, is it still that idea of unyielding progress that makes us modern? Is it still a telos that drives towards something? But now that we have the idea that that process stops,
progress is still something that we go for.
right?
Like, even though the Marxist notion that somehow history ends, the utopianism of that idea, while present still, there are still plenty of others that would argue that we still have a lot to progress towards or to do so. I think that there is still some spirit of an age of our modern times, to use it in its more Latin in Christian context, I suppose, of against the past, against antiquity, that we can progress further. Otherwise, you wouldn't have all these people in sectors of industry that say we can do more. Why should we be
Right.
chained to the past, or why should we be chained because of fear? I mean, you see this a lot in a microcosm. I think over artificial intelligence, you see a lot of people making
Oh
fun of the
yeah, of
like
course.
Eliezer Yudikowsky types or whatever his name is, the one who thinks that AI is going to end the world,
Big
versus
Yud.
big
Yeah.
Yuds in the chat. Yud, Luddite, Lud, big Lud, something there. But I think that the other thing to really consider is that modernity as or postmodernity is anti-modernity. I think that the thing that you can look at there is that, well, we're going to look at everything in the past and go round about it. But I feel like it's such a very, I don't know, Jordan Peterson take. Like, oh, it's
Yeah. Well,
anti-modernity, ergo, like, let's all these people tear down the things of the past. But there's some truth to that, although
yeah. No,
it's
that's
it's
true.
it,
But
it's it's difficult, I think, to maybe because we just don't want to say that. I don't know. Maybe we don't want to say that they're right. I don't know. But
well, no, but that's what I mean. Like, even Sharpelt said, do people have classics? Do universal classics even exist? Well, that's a huge debate in academia, and a lot of these
yeah, that
woke
war
people, they're
wars
like, no.
wars for the canon.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big reason.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, people are saying, oh, there's no such thing as universal classic because then that's like Eurocentric. Like, the whole idea is very
Habermas called
Eurocentric.
Foucault a young conservative to allege his postmodernity being anti-modernity. Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
Please. Oh, well, interesting.
Yeah. No,
Interesting.
it's true. Yeah, but Habermas is more like he becomes more liberal over time though. That's the thing. But okay, so here he says it in this paragraph about
Okay.
Baudelaire. So the spirit and discipline of aesthetic modernity assumes clear contours in the work of Baudelaire, The Flowers of Evil. Modernity then unfolded in various avant-garde movements and finally reached its climax in the Café Voltaire of the Dadists and then in Surrealism. Aesthetic modernity is characterized by attitudes which find a common focus in a changed consciousness of time. So again, being untimely, being out of time. This time, consciousness expresses itself through metaphors of the vanguard and the avant-garde. The avant-garde understands itself as invading an unknown territory, exposing itself to the dangers of sudden, shocking encounters, conquering and yet an unoccupied future. The avant-garde must find a directional landscape into which no one seems to have yet ventured. But these forward groupings, the anticipation of the undefined future and the cult of the new, means in fact the exaltation of the present. The new time consciousness, which enters philosophy in the writings of Bergson, with duration, of course, does more than express the experience of mobility in society, of acceleration in history, of discontinuity in everyday life. The new value placed on the transitory, the elusive, and the ephemeral, the very celebration of dynamism, disclosing a longing for an undefined, immaculate, and stable present. So the encounter with the new, but specifically the encounter with the transgressive or the encounter with something that is unknown, something that is rather dark, that can only work for so long, because that's the whole point of the avant-garde, is that in actuality you are in essence creating a new present by venturing into the future, and then that will become the new orthodoxy, and then the dialectic will keep moving on, because then, like, Roger Scruton writes about this in his essay, that, like, he, what was it called, the avant-garde and modernism, the avant-garde and kitsch, I think it was called. No, that was the Clement Greenberg, but Scruton wrote, called the he called it kitsch modernism, I think, about like how even something that is avant-garde then becomes this sort of new instantiation of rules and styles, and then therefore that becomes kitschified, and then you have something else that comes along. So that process is how we know ourselves as being thoroughly modern, because we always think that there's a new horizon to
His essay
conquer.
was called "Kitsch and the Modern Predicament" in
Yes, Sketch the Modern Predicament,
1999.
that one. Yeah, the famous
Yeah,
one in '99. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so that's what I mean. Like that. So that's classically how we know ourselves, is like, okay, we are modern subjects. We have a modernist consciousness. But then now we have sort of like this complication, because what happens when that process gets jammed up, and there's sort of like, in a weird way, it's almost like what Scholus talks about with stuck cult. Not that that's not an original take from him, obviously, but stuck
Culture is
culture.
so take, and we don't have original. Culture is
Yeah.
stuck, and we don't have original takes. Oh no.
No, but that's what I yeah, exactly. But the stuck culture thing is an extension of this, because that sort of like modernist avant-garde process is now, like, what is the avant-garde? Can we even point to it anymore? No.
I think that you can define it by what you call it. I mean, this is what made the Italian Futurists so interesting, is that they were at least willing to define themselves by being avant-garde and by being adventurists, in respects
Hmm.
to blazing a path towards the future. Today, I don't know so much. Like, I mean, like, sure, I am 1776 wants to talk about futurism. Okay, I need to read some of those essays before I really open my mouth on that issue. But what
Hmm.
does avant-garde mean when I think that we have become so
Yeah.
ecologically speaking, it's very hard to be on the same page as a lot of like, a general mass politic or a body of culture. You and I have a totally different frame of reference to compare to people that will travel and spend thousands of dollars to fly to the Met every time they have a new gallery opening or there's some party that's being hosted there. In the
Hmm.
same way that even the art critic that we read a few episodes ago, like we don't exist in a world where that kind of stuff constitutes the accepted and agreed upon high culture. I
Right.
think that the big divide when we talk about, say, modernity or postmodernity or aesthetics and architecture and painting is that you and I now exist in a time where people can be, even though Norman Rockwell, right, like the grand depictor of FDR American imperialism of like my four freedoms, my heckin' freedom of speech,
Hmm.
freedom from want, which most Americans could not name at the time when FDR was in office. They could not tell you what the four freedoms were. They couldn't. Maybe like
Right.
30% could. But the point being that in this day and age where everything is kind of really almost speciated to a degree,
Oh yeah.
totally different people, we're totally different consumers, that whatever is the agreed upon high culture by the pre-existing order, again, maybe as anti-modernity. Here you could say that being anti-modern means that in comparison to recent history, say the consensus making apparatus of culture, the New York Times, these art reviews, these artists and abstractions, we don't look at it the same way. And so we can look at that and be like, well, look at all this kitschy modern art bullshit. I mean, like, and what does that get reduced to? Well, it gets reduced down to a couple of talking points and memes about modern art on
Right.
twitter.com or x.com about, a taped banana. And that gets that's the main target of analysis compared to whatever might actually be in the Met Gala right now. And also it illustrates that sometimes we're not as cultured or as well read as we are. I can't tell you the last time that I went to an art gallery or anything like that. I can't.
Hmm.
I can tell you the last time I went to a symphony. I went to see a show with the best of Tchaikovsky. I've been to the theater recently, both community and by some stuff done professionally down to the Dallas Fort Worth area, because that stuff tickles my fancy more because I like theater more than I do going to art shows. But I think that when you're talking about like, oh, the aesthetics of modernity, or the, modernity being anti-modernity, we compare this to the past, and even Scruton talks about that as well. Is just that a lot of artists are super hyper aware of what kitsch is, but even in their desire to avoid being kitsch, they fall into that trap. And I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
what is the most perfect example than the what is it called, like Tennessee Corporate, the whole humans of flat design
corporate
stuff,
Memphis.
corporate Memphis. Okay, that's close.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect example. Like, well, we don't want to be like the past. We want to flatten everything out. We want to be Kierkegaard's concept of the leveling, whether they know it or not. And in turn, we've aesthetically drawn ourselves into not so much a corner, but we've taken a dimensionality out of our lives. Like one of the reasons why I like the fact that we are friends with so many like book review or literature review
Mm.
people is that we're a society that is functionally post-literate, and we don't really talk about a canon anymore that as a culture, Canadian and American, Anglo alike, inherited by our ancestry, and now we
Mm.
don't have access to because we don't read anymore. That also means that there's no real shared teleological aspect, like you were saying earlier there, Gio, because again, and I've said it on this show and I've said it elsewhere, and I need to write that damn essay for the Double Dealer, is that because Americans, for instance, aren't scripturally literate, they've lost access to their own canon. And that's a
Well,
hu
yeah. No, but like
these
even
are my
liter
random screeching thoughts as I read this stuff. I have not
no,
read
but
this essay before. You're getting my live reaction chat.
no, but that's what I mean. Like it's like even in like the 80s and 90s, you still had people like reading like contemporary novels. Like people, but they were like I don't know, like a lot of people would read airport books. Like like a lot of people read like Franson or Michael Crichton or Robert Ludlum. But then like you would do have like certain people that would read like David Foster Wallace or whatever. Like you'll always have lit cells, but in terms of like
Sure, but
popularity,
you're always gonna have those books like I used to be a miserable fuck or whatever they're called. I really can't stand
well,
the pop psych stuff.
the thing is like what happened in the 2010s with millennials was that yeah, people read Ken Follett. My old man would read Ken Follett. Like you'd have people like you'd have the confessional thing, but then what
Oh
happened?
man, everyone loved the confessional.
Yeah,
The
but
auto
then
fiction that was just slightly masturbatory intellectual exercising.
and no, but that's what I mean. But then by the time that they actually the later 2010s, by the time they got to writing a full book, not just like a short story or a short confessional piece, nobody cared anymore. Because
Yeah.
like again, because that was slop to begin with, slop in, slop out. So it was like then the confessional had to have politics attached to it in order to sell. It couldn't just be like, um, I did things with my father or I lived this crazy lifestyle. Like it had to have some other type of
Well,
quote unquote social
you know what a
relevance.
big part of the whole confessional thing is, though, and I think that this is the important thing that a lot of people miss out on because this goes again back to our maybe it's sort of the differences in literature consumption, right? Because I mean, there's book talk for women, and then there's like I
Yeah,
don't
but
know
no,
the
but
the
that's not
art.
literature.
No, no, I know that it's not
Yeah,
literature. I
that's
know
prawn.
for the majority of the point, it's not literature. You're
Yeah, true.
absolutely right. However, I've noticed as of late, and this is what I find particularly interesting. Permit me to go on a long tangent here.
Hmm.
There are two things that kind of come to my mind. Do you know who Anne Whitehead is by chance?
I've heard that name rings a bell.
She wrote a book in the late 90s called Trauma Fiction.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Then
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, author and historian. So like her point was is that like now there's this big
Me and Default just read a piece of trauma fiction.
you sure did. And I cite Anne Whitehead's work in a piece I'm writing about the history of
Oh, she's on
ideology.
Twitter.
Is she? I
Yeah.
think oh, I didn't know that she was still alive, but cool. But so
Oh,
anyways,
sorry, it's a different Anne Whitehead.
oh, okay, yeah, yeah. I don't know if Anne Whitehead is still alive or not. Um, but anyways, her book in '99 is essentially highlighting. I think it came out '99. Her book talks about mainly just how there has been this desire to unload as a confessional, but also to speak towards histories seen and unseen. And it's doing this really big emphasis. It's very lefty coded, very prog coded, and you
Hmm.
can see the confessional in there where we want to talk about trauma. We want to talk about this concept that is trauma, these deep psychological and physical and metaphysical wounds, and it's of course very progressive. But that I think emerges also from the post-war era onward as we start talking about horrors of conflict. I mean, even the Russian war film Come and See, right?
Oh God,
That's
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's that's trauma fiction or
Oh
trauma
yeah.
porn. In the same way that you can say that about certain other industries that have been talked about, that even
Yeah.
Norm
Mr.
Finkelstein talks
Benelli.
about. Yeah, that guy, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Benelli, the most stereotypical Jewish person I can think of, and but from there you get this. How do I now find an escape to that or from that? Because I think people are
Yeah.
kind of getting tired of. It went from trauma to unloading to embracing it to this sort of weird positivity that
Where
everything
you
is actually
create
good for you, where
trauma.
you create trauma to manifest some desire to feel seen.
Well,
Because
it's like those trauma comics that have been going viral.
oh,
So like the one in the
exactly. I
professor
mean, even
one.
yeah. Even though it's been memed to death, technically, Loss is a trauma comic.
Oh yeah.
The
Yeah.
ever so memeable 4-panel Loss. Everyone knows what it is, which talks about the worst thing that you can possibly deal with, the loss of a child, and so but now it goes from that to, well, how do I find meaning elsewhere? And how do I escape from that? So it's very interesting to me as someone who's part of like a small little playtester group for mods for the Master Chief Collection for Halo. And my YouTube feed, on top of all the politics and history stuff I consume, I'll always get these random recommendations by tiny little channels, less than like 1,000 subs or whatever. And some of them are full VODs from Twitch, and some of them are just like playthroughs, like part one, part two, part three. But I've noticed this explosion of women who are getting into these old games and getting into these like communities that like 20 years ago were all male dominated, all X, Y, and Z. And I think that they're trying to find a way to incorporate and to be seen themselves into it. And so
Right.
to bring this all back to the aesthetics of modernity or even postmodernity as anti-modernity, you are now looking towards the past of how can I contextualize yourself. This is where I think Catherine is very correct, for instance, in her piece about the reaction to sex positivity. I think
Hmm.
she's a little early in her prediction, but I think that it will come. And so
Oh,
people are tired of the confessional, but they still want to broadcast themselves. And so the only way now to be
well, it's a personal genealogy. That's
well, it's not even
yeah.
well personal genealogy, but I mean it's auto fiction, but it's an auto ethnography,
Right.
and so the auto ethnography now becomes a way of how can I project myself onto a text? Can I project myself onto a game? Can I
Onto a
project
comic.
into a comic? And then it stops being projection as we stop being a mainly published based society, and now it's a posting society. It's a video society. It's Pandora's Box, as Humdog would write, right? So
Well,
now
it's like
it's
the yeah,
it's
people
it's
they
it's a broadcast my trauma, broadcast it in a way
yeah.
that all eyes on me because it's not just trauma, it's validate me.
No, but that's what I mean. But also, I think like post-modernity allows you to sort of, in a weird way, upend that script and like really truly transgress against social norms. Because then, for example, people dug up that painting, that cartoon painting from the '70s by an Italian director about RPing, and it's like this like amalgamation of lines, this like monster in the corner that
Yeah.
then like basically like skins this woman, like like real death metal stuff, right?
I
But
I I I've enjoyed the edits to that meme a lot,
no, but
or
that's
that
what I was gonna say.
comic.
But then you have edits with like the Graper hands. You have edits of like Chud Jack because, and then you have like anime accounts that have like Asuka RP
Yeah.
Graper. Like it's yeah,
The
and they're
the
a
one
follower
that
of mine had a super
the one
viral one like
the
that.
one that
Yeah.
our friend Scribe sent me was the like the weird entity. He had like a little propeller hat and a lollipop in its hand. And he's just like, it's whimsical, impish even, and I just thought it was super funny. And again, it's like this is actually about a serious, like, event about
Yeah.
assaults and that kind of degree, and it's just like, well, yeah, but
But it's
it's
entirely fictional. That's the problem. It's
it,
it's
it it's it's it,
unreality.
it's
Yeah.
unreality, but
But a
it's
lot of
also
people, a lot of Zoomer women are
it's
treating it as if it's
unfiction.
like,
It's
yes,
unfiction.
it's unfiction. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
unfiction. But I mean, that has its own specific term because unfiction is meant to make it seem believable, like it could happen.
right.
Which of course these things technically could happen, but I mean,
Oh yeah, definitely.
also again, I think that this is somewhat a reaction to like the positivity culture, or even the dear colleague letter, because it's like, oh my gosh, it's like that TikTok that went viral on. I hate the fact that we're doing this, but like the one where the woman was on a cruise ship and she was like, "Here are all of the things that I do to make sure no one breaks in and like
Oh, that one.
grapes
Yeah.
me," and it's just like you're putting a lot of effort into this, and it begs certain questions like, why are you fantasizing about this so much? And then of course the underlying facet might just be because of what they consume. And again, I think when you can, we saw this even earlier in this
To
sense.
be fair, though, cruises are a lot unsafer than what people think.
They absolutely are.
Yeah.
You can, I mean, not even just in the assault part, but also just getting robbed.
Yeah,
Like,
like that woman that was that disappeared, that was rumored to be sold into
yeah,
actual slavery. Yeah, like it's. But anyways, that's an extreme case. But
but
there
I
are
mean,
people that go missing on cruises all the time.
even the revelation that the most popular book for a while was 50 Shades of Grey.
Right.
So I think that if there is something that we can say that define ourselves from the past, is that the modernity of today still is enjoying even further its quote unquote liberation, sexually speaking. And I
Oh
think
yeah, of course.
I don't think that the quote unquote after the orgy moment has happened yet. Because I think people are happy to stay the path that they're on, even if that means we hate each other more.
Oh yeah, like there's some people that literally want to watch everything burn before they can
There are
admit that,
some South Korean style accelerationists, I think, on the
Yeah,
gender
that admit
and the
that
sex
actually
discourse.
hating each other is not good. Well, apparently Louis Keshe, true crime is dying. Did you know that?
Is it?
Yeah, like people, it seems that the true crime moment is waned because there's only so many cases you could dig up. You know what I mean? Because you have to realize the CIA turned off all the serial illers in the 70s, in the 80s.
I
So
wonder because the thing is that a lot
I
if you
unironically believe that, by the way. The serial the serial, they were all turned off by the CIA in the 80s. They were deactivated. Now it's the mass spree fun poster.
because
Um,
the ATF and the FBI
yeah.
decided it's our turn.
Yeah,
Screw
by
you,
the time you got to
CIA. Let me
David
show you what
Koresh,
I can do.
it was over for like the genuine
But
serial
so if you
iller.
were to look up true crime genre, right on say with Bing or Yandex, whatever you use, you'll find that most of the articles are from the 2020s. So 21, 21, 20, 2022, January 2022, July 9th, 2021, June 2021. What are we doing all back then? What are most of
Hmm.
us doing?
We were inside.
Uh-huh.
We were in lockdown.
And
Yeah.
we were a lot of places were locked down. And
Yeah.
so between the Serial or like the Sword and Justice or Shield, whatever podcast. Yeah, sure, some of it can be
No,
dying out.
that's an amazing take by Marbly. The touch grass, have X, serve unt, be normal. I hate that phrase. I hate that.
Can't
I
stand it.
hate that ebonics phrase. Be normal attitude feels like a normie coded reaction against performative
Yes.
trauma struggle.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
100%. Yeah.
Log off. You're not actually a grape victim. What are you talking about?
And you're not a great party animal either.
You're not a party animal.
To quote the immortal words of
No one's putting a Mickey in your drink. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you acting like this is your life? Because again, this is it, the mass consumer culture. I think has been a, if you can define this postmodern or modern age, that it's going to be that.
right. To
It
quote
is
the
a
immortal words of Anna Kachayan, you're not what was it? You're not a villain, you're just an average garden variety millennial narcissist. It was something like that. It was something like that. But
wow. That was not a half bad take.
yeah, no, it's true. Um Zoomer, Perny,
I
Bonnet,
have these.
Scraper.
I have these women blocked, so I don't know. But good to know
Oh.
that wasn't a half bad take.
See Sargon apologize to Jess Phillips.
Yeah, I did.
Under duress, probably. They kicked him and Tom. Who was it? He follows me. The other guy from Lotus Eaters.
The Tom Collinson guy or whatever.
Robertson. They kicked him out of the Conservative Party. They like took away his membership. Him and Sargon's.
If he keeps it up, maybe he can get every registered party with the British government
to kick him out.
UKIP done.
UKIP
Tories done.
The next on the door Reform Party.
Next on the door Reform.
It may have been Connor Tomlinson, or it may have been the other guy that got kicked out.
Well, I saw that he had been kicked out, and it says, please don't comment on it publicly. And he's like, well, I'm going to tweet about it. But I think he did some interview with GB News today where he said he wanted to change his position with what he said. And he wants to set a better example.
Do you think she actually heard him, though? Like, she knows that he apologized?
Probably. I don't know.
Maybe.
But also, she's the new Home Secretary. Like, I would probably want to do what I can to preserve my right-wing news media business in a labor majority government, and try and do what I can as an online harms bill I'm sure is inevitable to pass, and things are only going to get worse.
She seems like the vindictive type.
Well, yeah, you don't just tell a woman that you wouldn't even,
Yeah, I know. That was, like, I gotta admit, out of all the things Sargon's done, that was pretty bad.
It has been the one that has been
the most notorious.
The most notorious, even more than calling
Richard Spencer and alt-right white
Richard Spencer's followers, white hard R's.
Yeah.
So out of all the things that have been in the ass the most, it's that one.
Both Connor and Calvin were kicked out alongside Sargon. Yeah.
Okay.
They're all kicked out. Yeah. So,
Well, what can you do?
Someone made that joke in a group chat, and that wouldn't have gone very well. Sargon's like, I apologize. Never mind. Let's move on.
Yeah, I know.
This is a long article. I might have to skip some parts. So, modernity revolts against the normal functions of tradition. Modernity lives in the experience of rebelling against all that is normative. This revolt is one way to neutralize the standards of both morality and utility. The aesthetics consciousness continues stage to dialectical play between secrecy and public scandal. It is additional to a fascination with the horror, which accompanies the act of profaning, and yet is always in flight from the trivial results of profanation. Well, what did we see with that comic? The Graper edits of it, the anime racist edits.
The trivialization.
The trivialization as the ultimate act of profanation. Not to say that we should belittle such things, but the way that there's sort of like this performative emotivism from like these MB kids, and it's terrible, and it's almost like when the Keith Haring edit went. Remember?
Yes.
Remember? It's like that. The completion of the Keith Haring AIDS painting. It's like this performance. Of course, that will lead to a profanation. The ultimate act of the profaning of something is to totally disregard it and to then make a mockery.
But that's the point.
Yeah, that's the whole
That's
point.
All we can do. I'm not.
Yeah, we're sort of we're dancing in the gutter.
We're not in a position of power.
Right.
We're just throwing mud, ashes, and shit at one another, and we just happen to land on a painting that was done with a guy with AIDS.
We're dancing in the gutter for pennies, as PPP would say. No, because then like that one, the Chudjak with the symbol of the monster on his shirt, RP everything and leave. Like, yeah, it's like that's the ultimate. You know what I mean? Like, and it's funny for a time, but I understand that. But it is an extreme reaction to something that is performative.
Speaking of pennies in the gutter, what else could be more performative than like all these like Solana shit coins that are based off memes?
Oh,
you know, like there's like a Cobson coin.
There's a Cobson coin.
Yeah, I have also learned that who's been making the fat Doomer Wojak girl thing.
Yeah.
So there's a shit coin for her, and that's where all someone keeps making these fucking fatties for the.
There's one where he's got like the happy mask, and
then he's like crying, and
she's blonde, and she's riding him on the couch.
So our friend David, Tukey's Mag, and
There was one that was perfect. I should have saved it.
he and I go back and forth with these because it's interesting to watch this meme evolve. Because his thesis is that this is actually a very good meme because it unleashes intense psychic damage on the
Yeah.
men who deserve it. And so he's just like, yeah, like if you're living this kind of life, like, and you feel like if this meme affects you mentally, he's like, you deserve what you fucking get. But on top of that, like, it's a great way to call out sort of the like settling culture that people have. It's like, well, are you really happy with this? Like, even I think it was like the Nugs guy, the
Yeah,
meme
Nugs.
account.
He's an old head. Yeah, he had a
And so
super viral
he's
one.
posted one of those, and then I think the White Boy Summer apparel account posted one where it's like the girl in the like sundress was like, "Really? You did her?" You know, and I think of the
Yeah, well, yeah, she's the waitress. Yeah,
yeah, and he's like
yeah.
sweating because he knows her intimately, and like what a I guess I don't want to say it's anti-trivialization, but it is this weird sort of call out in a thing
Every
that is
time Nugs
primarily
posts
directed
ones,
at the left.
yeah, yeah. Every time Nugs posts one, it goes super viral. Like there was one where there was like an amalgamation of different ones I saw today, which was like, that's
It's so
it's
bad.
over.
It's
It's
so
over.
bad. It's so bad. But I can't help it. I find it funny because it's kind of calling out it's a meme that calls out men. I think more so than women.
Yeah.
And it's targeted at men. It's the horror of the fact that some guys are like this or whatever as this like cultural comment thing because a lot of the Wojak memes are of course for men to sort of see themselves and project their beliefs or their things. I mean like where was it oh god, remember what was his account like millennial thinker or who else was it like the guy of of Zimbabwe, all those old Pepe Wojak edits from like the 2016 era, like
Oh
again
yeah, that's Millennial Thinker on
yeah
YouTube.
so
Yeah.
yes yeah old ancient old gigachad.jpg, and so
Yeah.
you have these things that are meant to like project a feeling, but normally it's meant to critique modernity, but now it's like critiquing sort of like the sexual dynamics of today of guys that'll settle, they'll pork the fatty or whatever. And I remember this quote from Semyagog, and this is a total aside, where he's just all like, yeah, porking one of those is like riding a Vespa, it's fun, but you never want your friends to see you riding
I
one.
think that was I saw it. Yeah, I was in that Twitter space. Yeah. Yeah, but that's kind of mean though. I don't know.
Sure,
It's like,
sure,
yeah,
sure.
that's mean. It's
The
hard enough out there. Like I
the
understand,
the
like,
the point being is that I'm seeing it used offensively to call out men when a lot
you're
of like
right.
when a lot of memes like this are meant usually to just be calling out like the leftist or modern project, but now it's in a self critic, self insult kind of way, which I find to be interesting, and I think that there's not enough. If I were to restart, I would be doing like meme communication theory culture writing and none of this
Oh yeah,
stuff.
some people probably done that. Probably,
Oh,
well,
I'm sure it
poorly, but
exists. I just want to know who it is. Whoever's writing about these things, please send the literature my way. I want to read it because this stuff interests me
well,
on like a as a calm study type
there's like a
deal.
weird resignation where they're using each other. He's using her for sexual release. She's using him because he's like a
She
normal,
and he
you
doesn't.
know,
She doesn't want to be alone.
right? And they both kind of don't want to be alone.
No one wants to be alone, but
Yeah.
also that leads to odd bedfellows.
No, but then there was that one where like he guts with a normie, like trad jack woman, and she's like depressed in the background, and it's sort of like this. I don't know, like that was a bit too vindictive for me. I don't know.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like it was just too like he gets a happy ending, she doesn't sort of deal. But
Yeah, I guess.
yeah, I understand like it's part of the fantasy, but I don't know. I just
I suppose so. I think that there's
it was kind of too mean. I don't know for my
I
taste.
think I uh, I guess I'm gonna end up writing about it. I think that's what I've resigned myself to do.
Like I
There's some
understand. I think
there's
someone did
something
make where she loses weight and she gets like. I think there's one like that too, if I recall. But anyways,
people are determined to write the happy ending.
yeah.
Back to the essay.
Okay, yeah, we got off in the weeds there. Walter, okay, let's skip this part about Benjamin. The revolution cites Rome. just fashion sense exactly today. Fashion is sent for whatever is current, whatever this moves within the thickest of what is was once. The thicket of what was once is Benjamin's concept of the jet zeit of the present as a moment of revelation, a time in which splinters of a messianic present are enmeshed. In this sense, for Robespierre, the antique Rome was a past laden with momentary revelations. Then he's moving on to the 60s. The Peter Berger talks about the post-avant-garde. This term chosen to indicate the failure of the surrealist rebellion. But what does it mean in this failure? Does it signify a farewell to modernity? Thinking more generally, does this exist of a post-avant-garde means that there is a transition to the broader phenomenon called postmodernity. This is in fact how Daniel Bell, the most brilliant of the American neoconservatives, interpreted this matter. Oh, this is where things get interesting. The cultural contradictions of capitalism. Bell argues that the crisis of the developed societies of the West are to be traced back to a split between culture and society. Modernist culture has come to penetrate the value of everyday life. The life world is infected by modernism. Because of the forces of modernism, the principle of unlimited self-realization, the demand for authentic self-experience, and the subjectivism of a hyper-stimulated sensitivity has come to be dominant. And so we recognize all of those things as a trait of our modern culture as well still.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's like hypersensitive, like hyperstimulation, being your own self, man. Like that's all still there. This temperament unleashes hedonism and hedonistic motive and motives irreconcilable with the discipline of professional life and society. Moreover, modernist culture is altogether incompatible with the moral basis of a purposive, rational conduct of life. In this manner, Bell places the burden of responsibility for the dissolution of the Protestant work ethic. So very much like crunchy, like, curmudgeon core type of thing where you can't really have productive life if you're always expressing yourself, man. That's like the very, this is like 1980s, 1990s style conservatism right here. Which has become rationalized under the pressure of economic and administrative imperatives. But yet notice how within life being more controlled and more rationally planned and more economic than ever, there's like these drop zones where in your private life you can become like a total hedon, where you could like watch Rick and Morty while you're bombed out of your mind on some kind of like high THC strain, and you're like eating corn, you're eating Frosted Flakes, or not Frosted Flakes. What was it? Was it Fruit Loops? You know
Fruit
that one
Loops.
picture?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would call your attention to a complex wrinkle in this view. The impulse of modernity, which we are told, on the other hand, is exhausted. Anyone who considers himself avant-garde can read his own death warrant. Well, that's kind of true. And someone mentioned that, someone mentioned in the chat sardonically, don't you know that the right wing is the new avant-garde? I go, well, like you're kind of like already stillborn if you declare yourself the new avant-garde nowadays for some reason.
Well, you do actually, because I mean, once you say, "Oh, we're the new avant-garde," or "we're the new kids on the block," you have officially made everyone know to some extent. It's
It's
you have a
over.
very limited window.
Yeah. That
Your
was like
existence is not long for this world.
that was like someone had this tweet. I can't believe I'm bringing this up because it's such a stupid meme that should die, and it will die. About the Haktua girl, about like, oh my god, this is such a great opportunity for blah blah blah, and someone replied that like totally dominated in the ratio. Let's face it, the Haktua girl has like less than a month to like make bank on this, and it's over. It's like not even less than a month. She has a few weeks. I think she has a week or two.
That's true.
Are they
Well, I mean,
they're making a miniseries?
well, didn't they sign some reality TV thing?
Yeah, but it's gonna bomb. Don't worry about it.
Well, we're not gonna watch it. That
No,
doesn't
of
mean
course
someone else
not.
isn't. I okay, so let me consider
Normie
this.
Cattle is gonna watch
No,
it.
get in the cattle pen, Normie. But no, my point
No,
is that I think
that was like the Cattle Decapitation album cover, the album art for the Killing Room Floor, where it was like humans are going up the cattle truck.
yeah.
What
I
were
do,
you
I
gonna say,
do
dude?
I do think that we're in a new era or a new phase of experimentation with online media culture
Yeah.
clashing with studios and things like that. So like, let's go back maybe 15 years ago.
The writer's strike.
Well, not just the writer's strike, but also with respects to internet celebrities. One of
Right.
the, like Fred, for as annoying as that gimmick was, one of the early, very popular YouTube channel. I think it was like one of the first big ones to get over 100,000 subs, which was a huge deal several years ago. And of course, I got a movie deal. He met fucking Weezer.
Yeah.
The channel got bought out. Obviously, I think he doesn't do anything anymore with it. But I
Fred
mean,
met Weezer.
yeah.
Oh man,
And
that's
so,
brutal.
I think the movie bombed in the same
There
way.
were like 4 different Fred movies.
Okay, well, that tells you quick, get my money and leave type deal. But it's not like they were
Yeah.
great big commercial successes, and it was for like diehard fans. And so that was like 10, 15 years ago. And yes, the writer's strike was a big part of that, in the same way that we've witnessed in a lot of these streaming culture TV shows that big podcasters, big independent, I mean, obviously normie friendly media, like one of the Try Guys, the Asian one, I think, was in like an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine or whatever, and has done some writing
Mhm.
stuff there because they all live in Los Angeles and they can get away with trying to get their break into Hollywood or whatever. And now I think that we're this Hot Tua thing or the whole Oliver Anthony crap. They have It's not like there isn't talent scouts looking for viral sensations because you can seize upon that and then follow their lives or to do whatever. So I think that we're in this weird new phase of media where it's trying to integrate the online viral sensationalism, scripted or unscripted, into the already existing streaming meme complex of we're going to just reinvent cable, but now with your favorite internet.
Yeah,
Remember those
like
things?
yeah, like they're trying to like replicate Honey Boo Boo over and over and over again.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
Haktua
Exactly.
Girl's like a more like mid skinny version of like Honey Boo. You know what I mean? Like it's just the same. Like there's always this like
It's the it's the commodification of white trash.
yes, exactly. Yeah. Like that's you know what I mean? And that's always a fascination in American life with this. And it's
Yes.
and and people like rag on him so much, but someone like Scott Greer, and I admit Scott Greer can come off as like a snobbish asshole, but like he's
Yes, but
100%.
he's
I'm only
he's
saying this
very
because Scott
much
Greer is a friend of mine, but he is 100% right. If you think that this is going to be your glorious right wing culture that's going to lead you to a better future if Trump gets elected, I'm sorry, but that's not good, right? Because you know that hillbilly culture was something much deeper in America and much more meaningful and much, like the folk traditions that those people in the Appalachians created was something way different than like Walmart, Punisher, Go What era, tchotchke, Haktua Girl, like county fair aesthetic. You know that there's something, more meaningful there in
yeah,
Appalachian redneck culture. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know.
absolutely.
It's so like in conservative boomers, they fall for this stuff. And I understand, okay, I understand the appeal. I understand it's like conservatives can be like somewhat actual as well, and they could be like hot, and they could talk about things that are raunchy, and we all want that raunchiness, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
there's a way to do it that isn't like, like soft white underbelly video tier stuff. You know what I mean? Like there's just, like
No, I wholeheartedly agree.
because it's just I don't know. I sound like an elitist snob, but I mean, there's a deeper Southern culture that is way more meaningful and way more, I think, a source of creativity and aesthetic impulse than just like what has been typecast largely by Hollywood, by the way, largely by enemy forces as like this is the American chud right wing Southern culture. And if we brought on Bob Beef today, he would tell you the exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
That is a stereotype of the enemy towards you that conservatards them buy into. Not to say that Haktua Girl is like, I don't know, she just seems like whatever. I don't really, she seems like a nice woman. It's all right. But I'm just saying, like, why do you think that those things or Oliver Anthony gets promoted? You know what I mean? But anyways, this is like a long digression from
But I mean, there's
postmodernism.
it's true, and I mean, like
Yeah.
even today, the point is that I think that I'm sure that someone's written about this, and if chat knows, let me know. But I do think that there's a correlation between lowest common denominator marketing and IQ. There has to be. If
Yeah.
someone has written that essay or has done the study, please point it my way because I really want to know.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, like, lowest common denominator in TV 50 years ago. Yes, there was Jerry Springer and all that other trash, but it was known as
Oh yeah.
trash. It was seen as trash. And now
People knew it was like a guilty pleasure.
exactly. And
People didn't
so,
form their identity or their politics around
but
Jerry Springer.
but
You know?
now the weird shit that's on Jerry Springer is sort of just like mainstream normie slop culture to watch.
Yeah.
Like, like the idea of a thruple would have been on Jerry Springer in the 80s and 90s.
That polycule would have been on Jerry Springer.
The polycule would have been on Jerry Springer, like the morbidly obese fat girl and the like 5 new male soy boy type men surrounding her trying to get their dicks wet. That would have been on Jerry Springer.
Oh, remember like they talked about like we tried to like get together with each other, but we're just not bisexual that way. It's like, oh my god.
So, the point that I'm seeing here is that
Jerry Springer was good when Peter Steele was on Jerry Springer. That was a good episode from Typo Negative.
I just think that the thing to overlay here is that like, oh, we're the Jerry Springerification of like of our world.
Oh, 100%. That was a great episode. I loved when Peter Steele came on and like all the women were like screaming their hearts out, and it's just like that was so great. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm less miserable, Jerry." Then like they brought out a groupie who's like this beautiful goth chick who's like his groupie, and she's like, "He's the most beautiful man ever." Like that was a great like go after the show, watch it's on YouTube still, the Peter Steele Jerry Springer episode. That was great. And he's like just shredding these roasties. Yeah, Guar was also on Jerry Springer, and Guar was on Wally George as well. That was another iconic Wally George episode. But of course, the most iconic Wally George episode, if you want to talk about trash TV, look up after the show Wally George interviewing the mentors. That was I remember when I was in high school, I discovered this clip. I like memorized it by heart. I watched it so many times. The Wally George mentors video. Like there was that moment where he like unmasks El Duce, and like the whole crowd was just like going nuts. Like it was like freak. It was like, oh man. Yeah. Anyways, those were the glory days. Okay, so I think we should you know about Guar, right? Right, Prude?
What do you mean by Guar?
You don't know about Guar? You never heard of Guar?
Clearly not. So let's just get this one over with.
Guar is a metal band, but they have like this whole mythology, and they like dress in different costumes. Like they're these like invading aliens from outer space. It's a band. It's a metal band.
Okay.
But it's like it's more of like a theater show than a metal band. It's like a more like performative Slipknot, and they have like the elaborate theater sets and everything. And I believe the main guy died, unfortunately, but like it's a whole cavalcade of different people. It's like this, I believe it's run by this art collective in North Virginia that does it. Yeah. Guar, yeah, that's like an old head deep cut right there. Anyways, moving on. I wonder, okay, social modernization's a good. Here we go. You Prude, you read this one. I think you'd like this chapter because then we have a few more. I could probably skip to the end. The end is where we get really juicy, but here he talks about neoconservatism. So,
oh boy.
Which I wonder if Habermas means like Goat era neoconservatism. He's probably referring to 1980s when was this book written?
Oh dear Lord! I just saw the super chats. Oh my gosh!
What?
Have fun reading that one by Mr. Way. But anyways, let's get to the essay. I don't think you can put that one on screen, but
what did they do? Oh
Ah,
my god!
I don't think you can put that one on screen, buddy.
I can't. That's terrible.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Okay, so this came out in 1983.
83.
So there you go. This is like the height. This is the beginning of neoconservatism in America. Not the
It's
beginning. I mean, if
in
you
its height, to say the least.
well, but you would say that neoconservatism didn't begin around when the 60s or 70s.
Late 60s and then moved its way through.
With Potteritz and Crystal, right? And then
Potteritz being one of the main heads, but there were also a lot of Irish guys.
yeah, yeah, true.
But where's the get me to the essay section so I
All
can
right,
read?
here we go. It's culture, modernity, social modernization. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Um, One can certainly not conjure up by magic the compelling beliefs which command authority. Analysis like Bell's, therefore, only results in an attitude which is spreading in Germany no less than in the States, an intellectual and political confrontation with the carriers of cultural modernity. I cite Peter Steinfels, an observer of the new style which the neoconservatives have imposed upon the intellectual scene in the 1970s. Quote, the struggle takes form of exposing every manifestation of what could be considered an oppositionist mentality and tracing its logic so as to link it to various forms of extremism, drawing the connection between modernism and nihilism, between government regulation and totalitarianism, between the criticisms of arms expenditures and subservience to communism, between women's liberation or homosexual rights to the destruction of the family, between the left generally and terrorism, anti-Semitism, and fascism.
So okay, pause. This was written in the 1970s, and look at conservatism in North America nowadays.
We'll also contextualize that in the 1970s, America was going through bombings,
Yeah,
hostage crises, hijackings, leftist terrorism all across America.
yeah.
Totally, totally just for them to compare, or at least when it comes to, you know,
Oh
some of
yeah,
these things. I
some
don't
of
ag-
them.
I don't agree with the entirety of the neoconservative project, but I think that there is the calling it
Yeah, calling them
logic.
fascism is like that's like a Jonah Goldberg
But I mean,
move
the
right
left
there.
are generally terrorists.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You
Yeah,
know, and also women's lib and homosexual rights have led to the destruction. Some of this is true, but like the logic link, right? Like we got to
yeah.
find
Well, what
the
about that one, Prude? That was probably because the pro-Palestine thing was still that was the
well.
beginning of the pro-Palestine thing, right?
Plus, you had the war in '67, and
Yes,
then
Yom
all
Kippur.
sorts. Yeah, all of that. I mean, so
Oh,
there's
the
some.
leftists they were against Israel from the beginning. Then
Well, a lot were, and also quite a few.
on the right as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, that goes without saying, but like the connection between modernism and nihilism. Yeah. So this is like the thread between most of the right wing. Although I would say that there is a modernist bent in the right wing nowadays with a lot of like the vitalists or the futurists or the Czech people, whatever you want to say. But like, think of it like the average normie conservative from like Jordan Peterson to someone more sophisticated like Alan Bloom would make that
yeah,
equation between modernism and nihilism. But yeah, so like that. So, but keep in mind, like this is why we read this on DA because you're never going to understand this unless you really dig into texts that were written in the mid 20th century, even before the mid 20th century,
primarily by the left.
primarily by the left. You're never going to understand the modern moment unless you do this. So when I saw this essay, I'm like, we have to read this. It took us a few weeks because of various interruptions, but
Yeah,
but
tell me how you really feel, Gio.
well, you know, it was the debate. That's that okay,
Uh,
there was the blood cell, there was the debate, and then there was something else. There's like the happenings are endless. The happenings are endless. But the only way you could really understand this is if you dig into these texts. So
Correct.
keep in mind when Prude reads the rest that this was written, where is it? This was written in the 1970s.
Yeah.
And if you look at this year, the election, some of this is still kind of the mainstream Republican
Well,
platform,
a
but
lot
maybe
of
not
a
as
lot
much
of
near the end, of course. But
a
like,
lot of the quote logic or trying to find a connection that you can point it to attack your enemy. That's just part of politics.
yeah, of
The
course.
the left will call it the family fascist.
Yes. Yeah.
So I mean, like, if you want to make the logic and say, actually, yes, the woke are more correct than the mainstream. Like, family is bad. Like, okay, fine, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, even if you wanted to go so far as to say, like, men are different than women, and it can be expressed through neurological pathways, which we can easily identify, and this is why like boys are constantly being medicated in schools. they'll just tell you that, like, well, clearly it's because men are just like these future evil rapists or whatever. And it's just like,
Yeah.
no, they're just boys. But even that phrase has been turned into a way to attack men
That's
for their masculinity.
yes, it's become a that was during the campus
That and the
hysteria
whole
thing.
Gillette shit,
Yeah, that boys will be boys, that's a dog whistle towards
yeah,
permissiveness of
towards
actual,
sexual assault or
yeah,
whatever. And it's
yeah,
not. It never was.
right.
Never was that phrase associated in my lifetime or yours with, like, oh yeah, Gio and I are just gonna bump fists as we commit a series of aggravated assaults on women. No, it's not what it
No.
meant. Um,
No, there has been some cases, like, I'm not gonna lie, there probably has been
I'm
cases
sure
like
that
that.
there has
There has been a
been
lot of cases of, like, smaller towns where things were covered up, but then you do have, like, this weird, like, hyperfiction of, like, the Law& and Order episode where the Duke lacrosse scandal is real now, where
Gamergate was real.
Gamergate was real. Yeah, Brianna Wu was actually threatened, you know? Oh, I shouldn't mention that name because
What an
it'll,
interesting man.
yeah.
The ad hominem approach and the bitterness of these intellectual accusations have also been trumpeted loudly in Germany. They should not be
Mm,
explained so much in terms of the psychology of neoconservative writers. Yeah, do you want to go down that pathway of
mhm.
like Mr. Potteritz's view of black people? Rather, they are rooted in the analytical weaknesses of neoconservative doctrine itself.
And here's something that Habermas I would kind of agree with here, but yeah, go ahead, Prudy.
Let's read it out. Neoconservatism shifts onto cultural modernism the uncomfortable burdens of a more or less successful capitalist modernization of the economy and society. The neoconservative doctrine blurs the relationship between the welcomed process of societal modernization on the one hand and the lamented cultural development on the other. This is some stuff actually that even Ted Kaczynski critiques about conservatives.
Mhm, mhm.
The neoconservative does not uncover the economic and social causes for altered attitudes towards work, consumption, achievement, and leisure. Consequently, he attributes all the following: hedonism, the lack of social identification, the lack of obedience, narcissism, the withdrawal from status and achievement and competition, to the domain of, quote, culture. In fact, however, culture is intervening in the creation of all of these problems in only a very indirect and mediated fashion.
Well, I would say that
I
yeah,
that last sentence I disagree with very, very hard that it did not intervene in the creation of these problems indirectly. No, because the culture war of the 70s was far more intense than what we saw, because at least back then
right,
the left were willing to actually be terrorists, even if they didn't. I mean, actually, correction, they got more or less everything that they wanted outside of complete prison abolition, but they're pretty close to that. I think that one of the things to consider is that there, of course, there's an economic and social cause by that, but it also fails to take into consideration. And this is me on the right approaching this leftist criticism. Uh, at least what I find to be left wing in this criticism. That, like, yes, there are economic and social causes for altered attitudes, but where do those come from? Well,
right.
they came from the change of the social order from the state. We radically integrated. We radically saw racial conflict due to, like, immigration and busing. We radically saw a complete upheaval of the economic sector from, say, like, Bretton Woods, and our complete shift when it came to global trade and the reserve currency, the whole what the hell happened in 1971.com thing, right? And at the same time, the cultural reaction to this is now witnessing a, post-coital. I hate the
Yeah,
reference after the orgy, but, like, you have this post-high of the '60s to now, like, the
yeah.
militant, "We must get what we deserve" type deal, because it's not like rioting stopped after the 1965 Civil Rights Act was
Oh
passed.
god, no.
Oh god, no.
It
It got
got
worse.
worse.
It got
Yeah,
worse.
got worse.
And in the same way that, well, why are people looking at hedonism, the lack of social identification? Because you've destroyed any previous existing order to do so.
No, but I guess that's what Habermas is trying to say, that they're sort of ignoring really hard material causes for, like, the changes in technology, the changes in economic integration, the changes in the social order itself, for the sort of like, well, they're promoting it on TV and it's bad, and there's no more like wholesome Chungus Leave It to Beaver society anymore.
No, the rural purge happened in '71.
Right. No, but I think like a lot of conservatards, they do have that attitude though. They think that like there's a lot of cause, and a lot of it, and again, this is what leftists will never get right, because they think that all conservatives are inherently racist and whatever, anyways, sexist, blah blah blah. Which is that a lot of copes, a lot of ideas, a lot of ideological distortions that a lot of conservatives have usually comes at the behest of trying to hide a lot of uncomfortable truths about facticities of differences and facticities of capitalism and so forth, and human difference and all that stuff. So a lot of their twisting of things is trying to attribute causes to things that that won't make them sound racist or won't make them sound socialist or won't make them sound whatever. And so I think a lot of leftists, they don't understand that the reason conservatives have contradictory beliefs, whereas people on the far right do not, is that they're not willing to go into certain territories for a variety of reasons. So I think like Habermas is partially correct here in the sense that a lot of conservatives will sort of ignore hard material causes. Not to say the material causes are anything, because I totally disagree. Well, I somewhat disagree with like the whole Compact Magazine type of stuff about like trying to revamp Marxists for conservatives.
Oh, just get back to me when they address like immigration in a serious way that isn't like, oh my,
or not throwing people under the bus. But
well, that's a whole other.
That's a whole other.
That's a whole other thing we don't have to get into. But I mean, the thing is just simply to.
The point. Okay, they're partially correct in that the economic causes and material causation is
yes, there's truth in that. In the same way that like I think that Kaczynski's absolutely right when he criticizes conservatives, where they won't address like the actual issue, but at the same time they'll just lament it, and it then gets treated as just like, oh, well, this is such a shame that it's happening.
Look at like what happened at NatCon just now, NatCon 4, where it's like 1 billion Indians, we're with you. Like,
yeah, it's horrifying. Downright terrifying.
You know what I mean? Like it's just
bone chilling.
Like, but you know why they're doing this, right?
Well, of course,
because they have taken the lead that if you have quote unquote high IQ migrants from India, from other parts of Asia,
this is your elite human capital.
That's your elite human capital that can stem the tide against wokeness. That's what they're banking on.
Yeah, and it's awful.
Yeah,
they're going to take over.
And it's not reality either, because look at the voting patterns of the average Asian person in America.
Yeah, it's like 80-20 Democrat.
They may be socially conservative, but the Mexicans were technically socially conservative. No, I shouldn't say that. Because there are a lot of like third and fourth gen Mexicans that probably will vote for Donald Trump, but I'm not saying that.
Well, yeah, in the same way. Yeah, but they're also at that point. Again, I would recommend.
They're white Hispanics at that point. Let's face it. You know? There will be an ethnogenesis in America, I feel.
And it's gonna be awful because if you read Garrett Jones's book, The Cultural Transplant, how migrants make the economies they move to a lot like the ones they left.
Right.
They're basically gonna make this place more and more
like India or China.
More and more like India, more and more like Guatemala, more and more like Honduras, and more like Brazil or wherever they come from. And it's just gonna be like, let 1 million favelas bloom.
No, but see, that's why they promote people like Hanania and Big Yud, or even Vivek, or who else am I thinking of in this group, this cohort? Even Yarvin to an extent, because like it gives them an easy out. It gives them an out to not be racist, to say that, well, actually, it's all about high IQ, or they'll like even someone like. I'm not bashing them, because
but you can be the most intelligent guy in the world. It doesn't mean that you have the same culture as me.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying like I shouldn't. I don't know that much about Nathan Kofna, so I'm not gonna like. I clearly despise Richard Bonania, but I don't know. Like I don't know, Kofna could be a good guy or whatever. But I'm saying like there's a certain form of like people that will be promoted by NatCon because it gives people an easy out, right?
Sure does.
Right? Now, even someone like Ron Unz talks about Mexican immigration. He's pro a certain form of Hispanic immigration, but he's like got a pretty, well-rounded argument about it. I'm not bashing Ron Unz. I'm just saying that he's obviously not promoted by people at NatCon for obvious reasons, right? Like it would be a total shocker if one of those speakers went up on stage and said, "You know what you should do? You should read the Unz report."
Yeah, you should read American.
You should read American Pravda.
Yeah, which will never happen.
Never gonna happen. But the point being is that people like Hanania and to an extent Yarvin
They'll water
and
down those positions, and they'll try and
yes,
sell it to a palatable elite political class and audience. And this is the same thing that we
and
saw with
Vivek
respect.
was at the spearhead of that.
But well, he wasn't at the spearhead. He just took
Well,
he took the
he
reins
took
on
it
an
and ran with
existing.
it.
He took the momentum and ran with it, and we saw what
People
happened.
say that Thiel is the spearhead of that tech rights.
Well, there's to some degree, there's probably truth to that.
Yeah,
I think that one of the important things to consider, if we're going to look back on our history of sort of like neoconservatism versus like a mainly Southern, sort of Fleming and Buchanan style of
paleoconservatism.
paleoconservatism, is that who won in the end? The hearts and minds of the average voter is very for like the average white Republican voter that's on board with Trump right now. Yeah, they're my heck, and I love like they're on board with a lot of things that you and I are going to disagree with.
Yeah, they like
But
the big face black guy. They like Alan West or
but
whatever.
the knee jerk reaction is to lower immigration and to not be involved in foreign wars and to make things better for the American worker at home and to reshore.
Yeah, that's the best you're gonna get, I think.
That's basically the crowd that they won. Whereas, of course, the neoconservative faction is appealing to universities, ethnic mafias, and the already existing wealthy political infrastructure that existed in the Northeast
Right.
and on the coasts. And that battle was fought out in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and it died, and it lost with Buchanan not being the nominee in 92.
Yeah.
And in turn, what's left of that, and of course Clinton and the rest sort of destroy any sort of quote unquote far right element with like Pat Conn and all the other crap.
Well,
and so
then Clinton, of course, demonizing the right wing because of the anti-militia movement and all the stuff that happened. That was another thing too.
Well, yeah, the whole Pat Conn, the whole militias, the whole Janet Reno weaponization of the DOJ, and then of course the sketchy, questionable things behind certain events that happened in the 90s. But that's a whole other.
That's a whole another can of worms. Yeah,
that's a whole other can of worms that we are not going to open today.
Count Dankula did a great,
and so I just think that it's important to consider in the backdrop of all these things with respect to the neocons is that yeah, they were of the few things you can say got right, and I think that there's again those are people worth reading, and our friend Turnip has done a lot of actual reading these people out loud and saying what they believed in back in the 70s and 80s.
I forget who said it. I think it was Rodin that was in a Marcel space that said this, that the reason that we hate the neocons so much is because the neocons that we have are just monumentally stupid compared to their forefathers. You can't compare Irving Kristol, for however evil Irving Kristol and like even the more newer ones like Wolfowitz or like Rumsfeld, or who are some of the Irish ones?
McFarland, I think. No.
Yeah. Like I'm talking the grandfathers
and let me go to the one that Turnip and I covered, and I can tell you real quick.
Like for however evil they were, like you can't compare him to his son, Bill Kristol. That's just you can't. Like you're never gonna compare Norman Potteritz to his kid. I'm sorry. Like,
well, not in a way that matters.
No, but like we just have like an inferior brand of neocon that infested the Bush administration.
Well, it's because they won.
They won, yeah, and they were evil. And
they were in charge.
Oh,
I think that that's the thing to really consider with all of this. It's just going to be, where is the neocon foreign policy? This is the one that I was part of.
Yeah.
Gene J. Kirkpatrick. I don't know why I was thinking McFarland.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, that one is about, dictatorships and double standards. And you can find that. Actually, I don't know where you can find that anymore. But that was definitely one that you can, I think it was originally in Commentary. But
so it was in Commentary magazine. Yeah.
But again, something to consider. And I mean, like that was over, God, when did we do that stream?
Oh man.
That was in January of this year. So I mean, again, you can go look that up. It's called Turnip's Digest, the Neocon Foreign Policy. Well worth your time to go over and
watch that stream again.
It's well worth your time. And if you want to know what these people actually believe in, the nice thing is that these fuckers wrote everything down.
Yeah, they wrote all their plans down. That's what I mean. I was recently reading I know I shouldn't mention Marcel because people hate him, but like he did recommend a great book by Max. Not that I agree with everything Max Blumenthal says, because Max Blumenthal, let's face it, is a man of the left, and he does make a lot of false assumptions about the right wing. Like he had this thing about Alex Jones that I didn't really, I didn't agree with too much. But his book, if you want to know the origins of the Iraq War to the Mujahideen to the current situation in Syria to even the current war in Ukraine and to Trumpism, read his book, The Management of Savagery. I know it's published by Varso, so it's got a leftist bent, but it's that particular gray mirror version of leftism, which I think is quite like Max Blumenthal does go through very meticulous documents demonstrating the origins of a lot of these ideas that the neoconservatives inflicted upon American foreign policy that has widespread ramifications to nowadays. So great book. And I thank Marcel for recommending it. Not that I agree with everything Marcel says because he's been kind of going on a bit of a crusade recently. But but anyways, Prude, read this other part. You'd really like this here, the neoconservative view.
All right. In the neoconservative view, those intellectuals who still feel themselves committed to the project of modernity are then presented as taking place of those unanalyzed causes. The mood which feeds neoconservatism today, in which no way originates from discontent about the antinomian consequences of a culture breaking from the museums into a stream of ordinary life. This discontent has not been called into life by modernist intellectuals. It is rooted in deep-seated reactions against the process of societal modernization. Under the pressures of the dynamics of economic growth and organizational accomplishments of the state, well, at least if someone's willing to talk about the state, the social modernization penetrates deeper and deeper into previous forms of human existence. I would describe the subordination of life worlds under the system's imperatives, and I wish it would define the system, as a matter of disturbing the communicative infrastructure of everyday life.
So this is the 1980s. He's writing this. And this is the Alan Bloom closing of the American mind. The intellectuals are assaulting ordinary life. But then, of course, because Jurgen Habermas, being a postmodernist, being well acquainted with Marxism, saying that, actually it's a bunch of social causes. But he's partially correct because a lot of these do originate on the ground floor that then get taken up by academia. Much in the way that, when Default talks about how Tumblr originated, or rather popularized a lot of fringeo theory, that mainstream academics responded to. That's but this is in the 1980s. He was talking about that. So again, nothing changes. So thus, for example, neo-populist protests only express in point of fashion a widespread fear regarding the destruction of the urban and natural environment and in forms of human sociability. There's certain irony about these protests in terms of the neoconservatism. The task of passing on a cultural tradition of social integration, of socialization, requires adherence to what I call communicative rationality. And this is, if people know, the mega 2-volume magnum opus of Habermas, to which I somewhat disagree with, by the way, because, we live in the internet age, and I think as much as he predicted a lot of it, I think he got some things wrong. Communicative rationality. Or communicative discourse. But the occasion for protest and discontent originate precisely when spheres of communicative action centered on the reproduction and transmission of values and norms are penetrated by a form of modernization guided by standards of economic and administrative rationality. Again, instrumental reason. In other words, by standards of rationalization quite different from those of communicative rationality on which those spheres depend. So, okay, my problem with Habermas, and just for a minute, Prude, is that he's trying to do this whole wholesome Chungus communicative rationality that can bring together the world in a sort of, planetary democratic action that relies on discourse, kind of like the Greek agora, that can then overcome certain limitations of previous iterations of democratic action. But behind that is the culture industry, is rational, instrumental reason. It's the economic forces. It's the whole Tingsor wholesome, it's like wholesome Chungus communitarians that want to communicate with each other against these greater forces that are preventing that, right? But as we know, and this is where Habermas has a huge blind spot, in my opinion. And I know, listen, I'm not an expert in Habermas, so if you're a philosophy student reading this, I apologize for my ignorance. But I think one of his blind spots is that he doesn't realize to which that process of communicative rationality can be manipulated. And this is, I know, basic academic agent elite theory. Read Prophets of Doom. Read the Populist Delusion. I think he actually mentions Habermas, AA. But the point being is that he doesn't realize that that process can also be manipulated, and that like people are guided towards certain forms of communicative rationality, and that, at least in my opinion, I don't know. Yeah.
I think there's a nugget of truth in there.
Oh yeah, of course.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that you also got to a good point there, that there is a culture industry. I mean, we talked about it earlier, like the whole Oliver Anthony or the Hawk Tuah thing.
Yeah.
Like there are agents, there are people who would do it. I mean, it's not like we jokingly say that these people are failed Hollywood, or they didn't get into Hollywood, so they got into politics.
Yeah.
DC and politics is Hollywood for ugly people. But I mean, that's still a place where like culture can manifest. And when you're young enough and the culture changes, now all of a sudden you realize, oh, things are way different now. I mean, like, what was the own that like Con Inc. was trying to do so bad a couple of years ago, which was like, oh, look at AOC's dancing video from when she was in Boston College or whatever back in the day. And it's just like, okay, and like, it's something I totally expect out of a college girl.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I endorse it or whatever, or what things like that, but it's just like that was the name of the game, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, it's a gotcha. And it's just like, okay, but you send your kids off to the same fucking colleges. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
but there is an industry to it. And also I find that the interesting the social modernization, and I feel like this just makes the case of the reactionary. Like, well, if this is modernization and it's the absolute destruction of familial, sexual, cultural, teleological, metaphysical bounds and ties,
Right.
well, screw your actual root cause sources. I have to destroy this and wage war against it, or
Because then
wage
there's
war
not going to
against
be any
it.
time left.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
again, like
No, but
as
see,
so
this is.
above as below.
But at the end of this chapter, the essay, look what Habermas says, that the neoconservatives, let me now move on to a discussion of modernity and its disconnects into a different domain that touches on the aporia of cultural modernity, meaning the unresolvable nature of cultural modernity. Issues that often serve only as a pretense for those positions which either call for a postmodernity, recommend a return to some form of pre-modernity, or throw modernity radically overboard. So now what is the response? And so here he talks about the work of art and the project of the Enlightenment, European art, the project of modernity comes only in the focus when we dispense with the usual contraption upon art, conception of art. Talks about Weber and the Protestant work ethic, science, morality, and art. And of course, then religion and metaphysics. They all fell apart during the Enlightenment. Scientific discourse, theories of modernity, jurisprudence, the production of criticism of art could in turn be institutionalized. And you have to realize that art criticism is a very somewhat of a new discipline. I mean, you can say that Wengelman came up with it, of course, but then the professionalized art critic, that's something entirely different, right? So now you have the contextualization, but really the meat is in the last paragraph. So let me go to here. This is an important part. The 20th century has shattered this optimism the Enlightenment thinkers had. The differentiation of science, morality, and art has come to mean the autonomy of the segments treated by the specialist and their separation from the hermeneutics of everyday communication. The splitting off is the problem that has given rise to efforts to negate the culture of expertise. What did we do during Clownvid?
See, these things.
No, but these things he's writing in the 1980s. But like, these are all the issues. Specialization of expertise has been such a poison that goes untalked about. You have to like dig so deep. You have to talk about, like, I know Athenian Stranger in some of his spaces. Mm-hmm. He talks about this. The specialization of the sciences and metaphysics and art has been a disaster because nobody can tether anything to a holistic, integral worldview. So here he says, should we try to hold on to the intentions of the Enlightenment? You have to remember, this is why you can't be totally anti-Enlightenment. Because the intention of the Enlightenment was the synthesis of all these things. And it's, again, a synthesis, again, it's fictionalized in people like Goethe, right?
Yeah.
And I know people like Fichte, people like even Kant and Hegel especially, is that the Enlightenment did represent the integration, the coming together of all these things. But then after a while, that same instrumental reason created a fragmentation of all these disciplines. And now we're sort of lost in the wind. And and we haven't recovered really. And all these people in academia that talk about these hyper specializations, it's like, what's the point, right? So,
Well, some of that matters. I
yeah,
mean, let's. I know that we've
yeah,
kind of fallen into the wayside about trusting the science or experts or whatever, but I mean,
right.
even in the liberal arts, you're never like, what does the title historian mean? Like, well, what kind of historian are you? Oh, what kind of American are you? But I mean, like, what kind of historian are you? Like, are
Right.
you an early modern era? Are you hyper specialized into one thing? And like, it's kind of important for those the is a discipline. Like, if you're someone who genuinely does care about the record of human history, you want people to be specialized. However, the hyper specialization can then lead to the tyranny because it's such a niche field. And of course, education and academia is highly rigged against anyone who wants to offer alternatives or wanted to investigate it to the bottom that doesn't have an already progressive schema attached to his worldview. Like that, I understand it's a huge issue. And that becomes the problem that we saw in 2020. It's the ongoing problem with the replication crisis in hard
Mm-hmm.
sciences. But what in the Enlightenment, and this is where the criticism can come in, but like in an Enlightenment world where I expect everyone to be objective and rational, like sort of these, like if you're like a centrist circuit, like skeptic centrist 2014-ish, well, wouldn't you want these people to be like telling the truth? And of course, it's very naive about power, and I understand that. And now, again, if you go right back up to that last paragraph here,
Mm-hmm.
scroll up real quick.
Oh yeah.
Where was the down, down, right there?
Yeah.
I, you know, it's that it's only part of cultural modernity, but like I think that the issue is that our cultural modernity that has been borne out, and if we can talk about postmodern solutions, I mean, like Last Things gave a great talk, the Old Glory Club conference using Deleuze and sort of the control society. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
our form of modernity encourages a form in which a mass man that is complicit in a mass culture that is suicidal. And so that
Right.
requires you to have people who in all sectors agree with this at all times. But now we're just our specialization has devolved. There's a devolution to it because you and I can talk about these things.
Right.
People can do a podcast or whatever and run XYZ reasons why they're wrong. How effective is that? Not great because you and I don't wield any real power.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what makes it so easy to be hyper reactionary on these issues. This is that we aren't near the levers of anything. So it's sort of like attack everything and be a quote unquote new popular front, but on the right to attack everything and look for weak spots and to creep our way in. But
Yeah.
so I guess like for us today, from the onward, like the and this is why and this is what it's so hard to balance about because like anti-aesthetic, anti-culture, counterculture. Well, what has the fucking National Review been writing about for like 30 years? Oh, we're the new punk rock. We're the new counterculture. No, I mean, it's like a guy screaming racial slurs on twitter.com like calls Will Stancil an idiot for wanting to like destroy the suburbs in white America. Like that. So I guess there's part of there's bits of this I agree with, but also that
Yeah.
the culture, I mean, even if it's not, even if we don't live in postmodernity or the postmodern moment has only just begun.
Right. I think it's only just begun. We're not like people that like say that we're in like meta-modernism. Like, I mean, hyper-modernity is a better descriptor, but I mean, yeah, postmodernity. We have yet to see true postmodernity.
I refuse to. I'm not too sure, so I don't want to like put a title of what phase we're in. But I think that for the age that we are in, the present age, we are certainly in a point where all artistry is only the further destruction of all of what was modern or antiquity.
Yeah.
right? Like that's very true. Like,
Yeah.
can you tell me that the obese black person that says I speak my truth in my Calvin Kleins, can you tell me that's really modernization? Can you tell me that that makes me want to buy the brand? But
That
no,
that's
also,
exciting and utopian.
yeah, like
No,
that.
but
That
it's utopian for some people though. That's the
well,
thing.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
utopian because they're utopian ideas. No more like white people.
Well, that and it's celebration of expression of people that they feel have been historically negated. So therefore, like by definition, that is like an aspirational thing. So, if you actually like take them for their word, but yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah.
So I mean, not to say that I mean I don't consider myself a neoconservative in any way, shape, or form. It's just that yeah, there are obviously links to leftism and terrorism. There are obvious links to like
Yeah.
cultural degeneration and the modernization of our times. But again, they never go far enough in criticizing that because I think they have their own blind spots because they're also part of dispossessing the majority of what has become the right wing in America, which is primarily a de anglicized project that is very post war oriented and is heavily Germanic, Jewish, Catholic, not a lot of Southerners, not a lot of WASPs. And so it's like, and now they're fighting the same kind of fights that these guys are fighting. And it's just
Yeah. No, but that's what I mean.
nothing
Like,
new under the sun.
in a weird way, you could say that, like, not that I'm not endorsing this view, but like, you could say that neoconservatism in some ways was sort of like this American chauvinism that was like, we are the shining hill on the rock and we are going to civilize the world. And it was an extension of a lot of those older ideas. But then that was like created like a very subversive type of globalism that in actuality deeply, deeply eroded the actual beating heart of the American and the Western populations. So I think like a lot of people nowadays on the quote unquote dissident, not to name names, but like there's certain people in dissident right that do take, like they do sound kind of like neocons because the way that neocons like sold a lot of their ideals was literally like this Western chauvinism. But you have to divorce that from the intentions of the neocons themselves.
Well, I
Um,
think it's also very important to, I mean, like anyone who's been on the internet knows this when there's like a
yeah, of
patriotism
course.
fight on the internet. Is that like, okay, for if you're going to get into like a shit
Like
flinging
even
contest.
NATO released a music video the other day about it, but it was like a multicultural,
But well, no,
global gay race communism version of
Gio, what
it.
I meant though was is that like any person who genuinely loves their people or country,
Right.
there's going to be some boastful chauvinism about it, like
Oh yeah, of
hands
course.
down. But again, when you get on a shit flinging contest of like your petty nationalism online, like oh, Indians can be shown videos of someone getting hit by a train or shitting in the street or all the terrible
Or
things.
then they'll
But
respond
then
by
they'll
showing
go
you
right
video of
back to it. But they'll go right back to America and they'll do like the
cuck
obese black
prawn.
person, cuck prawn, da 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 da. And
Yeah.
so it's a vicious back and forth. But like also, you can rail against all of those things and still love what you have.
Oh, of course.
And I think
Yo,
that
but
that's that's the fine line I think you have to balance. But
yes.
oftentimes it's so easy to get lost in the weeds for a chauvinism that oftentimes looks far more naive or dumb.
Yeah, exact. Geo, they are neo. Of course, Wyram Hatcher would say that. They
Some
are.
are.
Some
Some
are.
are.
No, yeah,
Some are and
some
they don't
are.
even know it.
Yeah. Not to
Like,
name
that's
names.
absolutely true.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, is you can't be intellectually dishonest just because you've bantered with somebody online. You know what I mean? Like, you still have to point
Yeah.
out that actually you are playing into a more dangerous discourse. And I think that,
Yes.
you know what I
I
mean?
would
Like,
agree with that wholeheartedly,
that's what I mean.
especially
Like here
since
on DA,
October
we're not
7th in
like
America.
let's just remind the audience here on DA, like we're not playing favorites with any particular side. If we notice something, you know what I mean? Like we have to call it out. It's not,
Well, plus,
yeah,
I try really, this is just a personal thing for me. I try really hard to like,
stay away from drama.
well, I try really hard, but
Yeah.
also that's not what I was getting at. What I mean is that I think it's important to consider at all times to maybe track and contextualize where an idea comes from.
Yes.
Because I think
Yes,
sometimes it's
exactly.
really hard to pinpoint the source of unless you were there for when it was said. because sometimes these things get said into space and they get picked up really easily, or
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
they get picked up in an old obscure blog, right? Like, if Yarvin's correct about the whole him being the guy to use the term red pill for politics, most
Mhm.
people still probably, like, the average normie guy who says red pill probably doesn't know where that comes from.
No, of
In the
course
same
not.
way, in the same way, right, that, like, why are we railing against modernity in a certain way, or why are we calling it these certain terms or phrases? Am I simply regurgitating these, like, innate neoconservative tropes? And so this is
Yeah.
why I think it's important, A, to read these people, and you should read neocons. You
Oh,
should.
yeah, you
Not
should.
because not because I'm telling you to be a neocon, but because I'm telling you that we should know where these ideas come from, and do they hold up to scrutiny? And because when we look at
Read
because
read
when
Netanyahu's letter. What was it called? He wrote in the
I
90s
I
to all
don't
those
know.
neocon. It was
I don't
called
think I
A New Plan or A New Beginning or something.
something, but
Yeah.
the thing is that it's important to map ideology and political philosophy. And I'm gonna have an essay out on this soon. I have like 1,000 words done already.
Hmm.
I've been on a when you're reading something that you shouldn't be reading because you have like 5 other projects that have deadlines. Like
Oh, yeah.
I'm doing that right now, and so I'm a good chunk of the way through Thomas Moynihan's Spinal Catastrophism, and it's really I wish I could take drugs because it's one hell of an acid trip, but the idea of the human spine being an evolutionary history and a history of trauma throughout life, trying to escape life via consciousness, super interesting stuff. There are like 2 chapters that are direct references to his work. Fucking wild.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you have so to relate it back to this, ideology and political philosophy, like right wing or like dissident right or alt right ideas or whatever, you can map these ideas and these ideologies and these right wingisms or whatever. I think that they can be mapped as a history of ideas encountering, say, trauma or
Yes.
reaction to of modernity, of leftism, of progressivism. So, for instance, like when we talk about old talking points, like, well, how come no one talks about intersectionality anymore? Well, that's a great question because intersectionality still is an operating philosophical concept, kind of like
People
how
do in
fusion.
academia, they still talk about it,
Well,
but
good,
yeah.
but we don't on the right anymore. That kind of raises an interesting question for me because it's like it's an old 2015 talking point that even like old anti-SJW types were referring to.
Yeah.
And for me, that's interesting because it's like, okay, well, we don't talk about it anymore. So does that mean was there some traumatic event in our political history on the right that told me not to, or said that maybe we
Mm,
should focus on something else? And so
right.
I think if you map ideology and if you map it through, say, I don't know, trauma fiction as a hermeneutical tool, that all of a sudden we're mapping encounters with trauma, or in politics, encounters with the enemy, and
Right.
encounters with praxis, encounters with these other ideas. So, for instance, a great reason why people get skeptical of, say, protest movements or groups or, things is what was the traumatic event that told you not to do those things? It was Charlottesville, right? And so the
Yeah.
politics of the right online mapped out, you can see these traumatic instances where they clash with reality or clash with, I don't know, um,
The
pl-
norm.
the norm or the normies or whatever, all of a sudden, like, okay, now retract, react, shield up. I'm still figuring it out, but I think that clearly we need to map these things, and that
Mhm.
requires us to read these people, and it requires us to look at our own history. Like, for instance, I know that you used to be with these guys, but I mean, like, there's still a good, pretty nice archive of the Thermidor magazine podcasts.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
are time capsules worth exploring. Like, if you weren't around in 2017, I mean, I was in a way of like being someone as a listener and a consumer of ideas, not a content creator. I was working for the fucking county GOP, but like
Yeah,
where
yeah.
I lived. But I mean, it's interesting to go back in time and be like, whoa, something did seriously happen. Where like you can listen to someone who hates his former self, i.e., Campbot, talk
Mhm.
about Charlottesville in a way
Yeah.
that very much sounds very similar to what people would say today. And so
Yeah, and now
I
now
think
he's standing a black queen on Twitter with that
exactly
woman, the Guggenheim curator, who hates the movie, Miami Vice.
how the mighty have fallen.
How the mighty have fallen. How the
how
gunty have fallen.
the gunty have fallen.
I love how
more than one gun, you know.
I love how in the sector, you have like a select few fat guys, to which I'm one of them, and we all hate each other. Well, not me. I mean, I only hate one.
There can only be one.
No, but that's what I mean. Like Ethan Ralph hates all of us. Campbot hates all of us. I hate both of them. PPP, I don't know. Well, he's ambivalent towards Campbot, but he's like the top A-log of Ethan Ralph. It's like every fat guy in the sector has to hate one another. Yeah, there can be only one. Yeah. No,
very Highlander-esque.
No, but Worm Hatcher brings up that was a great point, Prude, about like trauma is also a weird form of expressing the self within a modernity that has left you behind, largely. And I think, or a modernity that refuses to give a context to your to meaning to your own life. And so, but Worm Hatcher brings up a good point about how neocons in the early days, in the 60s and 70s, they had to like often like skin suit a lot of paleocon stuff in order to appeal to them. But you know, I knew it was Worm Hatcher. Listen, I've been calling Worm Hatcher Wyram Hatcher for years. I don't know why.
Oh boy.
Wyram Hatcher. Anyways, so I think we wanted to talk about the election. So what I'm going to do is I think I'll talk about the rest of this in terms of the art theory, aesthetic theory on Content Minded, because I wanted to really focus on the last chapter. The last chapter, where is it? Is alternatives? Mm-hmm. Yes, alternatives. The last chapter, I think, is why I wanted to read this essay. I think that instead of giving up modernity and its project as a lost cause, we should learn from the mistakes of those extravagant programs which have tried to negate modernity. Perhaps the type of reception of art may offer an example to which at least indicates the direction is a way out. Bourgeois art has two exceptions at once from its audiences. On the one hand, the layman who enjoyed art should educate himself to become an expert. On the other hand, he should also behave as a competent consumer who uses art and relates aesthetic experience to his own life problems. Well, the first one didn't happen. Second one got weaponized again to sell slop to people. This second and seemingly harmless, well, it's not harmless anymore, manner of experiencing art has lost its radical implications exactly because it is a confused relation to the attitude of being expert and professional. Now, I would say that in order to appeal to people to integrate mass art or mass culture industry products into one's daily life, there was a radical leveling process. But also when it comes to being experts and professional, like what is the millennial left-coded video essayist but this like faux sophistication of treating of the Frederick Jameson postmodern line that there's a destruction of high and low culture, that you have to treat the most basic normie slop, the newest iteration of the upteenth Star Wars breakaway spin-off franchise, as if it's worthy of academic exploration, right?
Some do, but some others don't.
Some people just consume.
I guess I'm revealing my own the coal I consume. But like for instance, a guy who's definitely a leftist, who's for all intents and he's like a soy-lennial, but I think he's like married and he's got his like shit together at least. But like
Stancil?
No, heavens no. But like as for a YouTuber, I mean, like Noah Caldwell Gervais is a really good example of this.
Oh god.
Total lefty, total leftist, sucks at video games, gets to review them, pretentious, doesn't make sense on a lot of shit. But like
he's terrible.
But the perfect example of what you just described.
To
some extent.
Yeah, true.
Like his new Vegas, not his Fallout review shit was awful. As soon as he got to Vegas and started talking about fascism, I was like, I'm turning this fucking shit off.
Yeah,
but like on other time, but also I thought I will say that it was good for, despite it being totally left coded. He did a breakdown of both of the KOTOR games, Knights of the Old Republic, and he was talking about Joseph Campbell.
Oh yeah,
it was actually good. I was like, that's not bad, but I also know that like he's a raging. I don't know his politics, but like I know they're progressive, and I know he would hate us.
That's crazy.
They're evils. But it's just like these
tuber.
But they exist, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Like clearly there's high culture, but also like no, people also want to just talk about the shit that they like.
No, true.
Like my
Yeah.
lowest viewed content right now is my Venture Brothers like retrospective, but like I'm gonna keep doing it until I get to the very end. Why? Because fuck you, I want to talk about it. And if we could
Yeah.
all talk about the things that we liked to talk about, like TV and movies, I think that the right should embrace that more. Because, like, really, what are you competing against? You're competing against like podcasts that also cover culture and other slop. You might as well be the best one to do at it because we don't want
Yeah.
left wing culture codes to dominate someone's review of fucking Frasier. Because there's like a 4 hour, like a 2 hour long fucking video review of the whole series of Frasier that's by some white low T millennial who's talking about white privilege and class, and I just want to like kick him out a window. Like that's not what makes the show good. Quit talking about
Oh.
it through progressive presentism. You should not be breathing. But like, hey, like it's the world
In
that
Minecraft, yeah.
in Minecraft, right? Like, you know, you need to get right and just be over with. But again, that's the modernization process. Everyone now produces, everyone now consumes, and the high culture, which is progressivism, which is sponsored by people that avoid it like the devil, but tell the lumpen proles to have at it. It's just here we are.
Did you see the
I'm
video clip?
exhausted.
Did you see that video clip of Will Wheaton talking about producing the new Star Wars spinoff where they brought Stacey Abrams as the president of Earth?
You mean that was Star Trek?
Star Trek. No, it was
Yes, it was Star Trek because
oh, it was
there's no
Star Trek.
Earth in Star Wars.
Oh yeah, that's right. Did you see that clip? I think I forget who shared it. I think it was it oh, I replied to it with an image of Ethan Ralph. Um where is it?
I don't
This
know.
is
I
I
don't
think
think
it
I
was
saw it.
Barack Obama.
I like
Um
Barack Obama a lot. He's a great poster.
oh, what is it? Where is it? I said no more. Oh, it was Plato's Goon Cave. Plato's Goon Cave, where they were like saying it over again how much they were like gushing over Stacey Abrams, and
Yeah,
it was like a man is saying this like it's.
but again, that's what constitutes "quote unquote" the popular culture.
Yeah, like
Does anyone
Stacey Abrams.
believe that
I
though?
can't believe it's Stacey Abrams. No, I mean maybe
Oh.
Will Wheaton is just like that, like
Well, this is his
mind
one claim
destroyed.
to fame.
Yeah, yeah.
So like, there's
It
not
was.
much to really add there.
It was Star Trek Dicks uncovering.
It's
They
uh,
actually got Stacey Abrams. Do you remember back in like, was it the 2020 election where, and Will Wheaton actually said this. He said, I can't believe that Stacey Abrams took time out of her busy schedule of saving democracy to do this Star Wars like cameo. I'm like, that's just so I can't like that can't be real. That can't be maybe it is, but like
well, Gio,
yeah.
we're almost at 3 hours. I mean,
All right, let's
the only take I have on the French elections is that I really actually the best take I saw on the French election was from James Kirkpatrick, and that
yeah.
anytime the center right will always side with communists and socialists when it
Yes.
comes to these issues of ever letting even a nominally civic nationalist party get in. The only
Yeah.
issue that clearly matters is immigration.
Oh yeah.
Despite
But
the
like
fact,
those videos were blackpilling out of France, those
despite the
protests.
fact that the right, that this reassemblement, you know, despite the fact that they um despite the fact that they got the popular vote in a high turnout election,
Mm-hmm.
clearly it's stacked against them as the same way we saw with reform.
Yep.
Despite
Yep.
they got more or less half the votes that fucking the Labor did, and they only got like 5 seats.
Oh yeah.
It does show you that in France, one Holobeck submission, we saw the communists and the Islamists work together to keep the far right
Mm-hmm.
out, and then
And the
secondly,
centrists
and the centrists and everyone else,
the neoliberals, yeah.
and yeah, everyone to keep him out. But again, the only issue that matters is immigration, and that will be the remaining existential issue for any European and Anglosphere country for now until the issue is resolved or we lose.
Yeah.
That's my only
It's
take, and
over.
I'm eager to go to the super chats because it's late.
Yeah. Well, I want to read the last paragraph, but because like he was saying, young conservatives. So is he alluding to the dissident right? Young conservatives from the pre-modernists of the old conservatives and from the postmodernists of the neoconservatives. The young conservatives recapitulate the basic experience of aesthetic modernity. They claim as their own the revelations of a decentered subject, emancipated from the imperatives of work and usefulness. And with this experience, they step outside of the modern world. On the basis of modernistic attitudes, they justify an irreconcilable anti-modernism. So again, anti-modernism coming in through postmodernity. They remove into the sphere the far away, the archaic, the spontaneous power of imagination, self-experience, and emotion. To instrumental reason, they juxtapose its Manichaean fashion, a principle only accessible through evocation, be it the will to power or sovereignty, being or Dionysian force of the poetical. In France, this line leads from Georges Bataille to Michel Foucault to Jacques Derrida. The old conservatives do not allow themselves to be contaminated by cultural modernism. They observe the decline of substantive reason, the differentiation of science, the morality and art, the modern world view in its mere procedural rationality with sadness and recommend a withdrawal to position anterior to modernity. Neo-Aristotelianism. So yeah, a lot of conservatards are like that. In particular, enjoys a certain success lately. In view of the problem of ecology, allows itself to call for a cosmological ethic as belonging to the school which originates with Leo Strauss. One can count the interesting work of Hans Jonas and Robert Spemann. Finally, neoconservatives welcome the development of modern science as long as it only goes beyond its sphere to carry forward technical progress, capitalist growth, and rational instrumental administration. Moreover, they recommend a politics of diffusing the explosive content of cultural modernity, according to which thesis science, when properly understood, has become irrevocably meaningless for the orientation of the life world. A further thesis of politics must be kept far aloof as possible from the demands of moral, practical justification. And the third thesis asserts the pure immanence of art, disputing its utopian content and pointing to its illusory character in order to limit the aesthetic experience to privacy. One could name here early Wittgenstein, Carl Schmitt of the middle period, and Godfrey Benn of the later period. Ooh, Godfrey Benn, there you go. But the decisive confinement of science, morality, and art to autonomous spheres separated from the life world. And so this is why conservatives also love kitsch, by the way. Administrated by experts, which remain from the project of cultural modernity, is only which we would have if we were to give up the project of modernity altogether. As a replacement, one points to traditions which, however, are held to be immune to demands of normative justification and validation. So here he's saying that the normie neocons, that they will also capitulate to a form of modernity. But here he's saying that there are young conservatives that are quite different, that are quite transgressive, that will embrace certain forms of the modern world. That, in a way, is he kind of predicting the modern dissident right? The modern E-right? Is he predicting that in some ways? The postmodern right, if you want to call it that? It's an open-ended question, you know?
It's open-ended, but I would say that read some of the new right papers that were coming out in the 80s, especially when it comes to things like art and gender relation or sex relations. And you'll notice very similar stuff of what we're talking about still today. And again, why we should map our own beliefs and ideologies, because you're going to witness why do some things survive and why do some things don't, because there are traumatic, catastrophic events that happen that kill them off or allow them to survive. So,
yeah.
What did the good people of the Digital Archipelago's loyal audience give to you today, Gio?
Now we'll get to, maybe I'll cover the French election on the Cole report.
There was a lot of coal in all these elections.
Oh yeah. Well, Philip Jones is correct. 60s radicalism, the Marcuse cheered and then gave Adorno a fatal heart attack. Was reaction to Carnival Mirror, student utopianism was yearning for distant past funneled through left progressive language. Yeah, of course. There was an element of Dionysianism to it, but it was of course, filtered through lefty progressive language of, that
we
came
still have
from
a
various
lot
sources.
of that today.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that still today.
There's a lot of those videos in France of that as well, of like, we won, we're here to stay,
Yeah.
Anyways, that really is what was blackpilling me, were those, because I had a thread about, like, I know the character of those type of students. I've seen them before, and the arrogance, the haughtiness.
But yeah,
It's
you're
just,
in Canada. You definitely see it up close and
yeah,
personal.
a lot of these, yeah, yeah. So, anyways, no, maybe I'll talk about them in the core part. So let's go to the entropy chat. So some of them, I'm sure I can't read, but all right. Seneca for US $3. Our good friend, I feel like I've seen this thumbnail before. Yeah, because we keep having to postpone
We
the.
postponed this one a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Then Graham McCann, our good friend, for $5. $5. Too bad you missed Blood Games, Gio, the 2.5 season of Fish Tank. I really liked it. I didn't get too deep into 2, but I found 2.5 to be really kino. People like Tay and Jimmy grew on me. I love Sam's character. Letty, of course, is still my favorite. I hope season 3 is great. Well, I didn't watch it because it was like a throwback to the previous 2 seasons, but I've heard that some of the clips were good, and of course, I'm going to watch season 3 religiously. I'm excited to see some new people. And our good friend Seneca for $10. Missouri Lore, Burnt District, nicknamed for Bates, Cass, Jackson, and Vernon counties during the Civil War. U.S. General Ewing deported 20,000 Missourians from the area in 1863 to tame partisan activity, then burned their homes. Fighting between USA, CSA, the Confederate Army, Jayhawkers, and Bushwhackers destroyed the rest. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know about that. The Burnt District. Well, Missouri was important during the Civil War, right? That was,
I mean, there were conflicts there. I mean,
yeah.
it did border along there. But I mean, also to give Seneca a shout out, Seneca also last week sent us some great Missouri lore about what was called the Honey Wars, and
Oh yeah, that one.
that will be an article next week for the Old Glory Club Substack. So if you want to know more about Missouri lore, Seneca's your guy, and you can read more about it next week.
Oh yeah, the Honey Wars.
Yeah.
All right, now oh my god, there's a big super chat here, but I'll save it to the end. So
The
James
$100 one,
James Burnham. It's Mike of Paul, by the way, locked out of old account for $5. Then Owen Zaleski for $5. Hello, gents. I hope you guys are well. I've recently been featured in an online art gallery. If it's okay, can I post in the chat? Thank you, Gio. Yeah, post it in chat.
Yeah, go for it, man. Congrats.
Thank you, Gio, for the shout out and the newest content minded. I hope you thought of having Love Crypt on. Much love. God bless. I was going to record with Love Crypt and another artist under his label, but then there was scheduling issues. But I definitely will get back to Love Crypt recording in the future. All right. So then we have Vulnerable Ox for $5. Finally catching you live. Voluble Ox. Finally catching you live. Sneed. Gio, are you taking art commissions at this time? Yeah, I'm always taking art commissions. They might take a while to get done. But yeah, please feel free to. If you want an art commission, just email me. My email is in my Linktree because I'm pretty bad with Twitter DMs. And here we go. Sam153, a good friend, for $10. Muggy July Summer Sneed. Yeah, it's been all day has just been kicking my ass. The mugginess is,
Yeah, it's been rough.
Yeah. And our good friend Charlie Mackey for $15. Good evening. Thank you, Charlie Mackey. And here is from Mike of Paul for $100. Holy crap. Gio, please respond to Weaver Merrick for the art event in California in January. Any artist DM me on Twitter or send submissions to arthouseparty@protonmail. This will be the biggest right-wing art event ever. An auction for bespoke pieces, booths for artists to sell their art, if they attend or not, and display locations for your best work. Very excited for the MC for this. Well, Micah Paul, I definitely will contribute. I will try to send some of my best works. I'll probably end up sending a bunch of my prints, though, because they're pretty easy to ship. I don't know if I can fly out to California, though. That'll be a bit of a stretch. But I definitely will DM you and Merrick. So thank you. God bless you, Micah Paul. And of course, we have to record again. So that's another thing to look forward to.
Something. People really, the guy who's organizing that really has asked for you by name.
No, yeah, I know. I've been neglectful, so definitely I will respond. So Yeah, and Michael Paul, I believe he's involved in organizing as well, and definitely I will when the time comes. I will shill and promote. So I just can't promise that I'm going to fly out to California, but I definitely can ship my works to sell. So that'll be great. And of course, me and Michael Paul, we still have to talk about Baudrillard's The Fatal Conceit, but we just never got to it last time we recorded. That was like I recorded with Volpez, we just never got. We were talking about so much about other things, we just never got to another book by
many such cases.
Yeah, by Byung-Chul Han, and then we were like, oh, it's 3 hours already. Anyways, so this is this YouTube super chats, and of course, you guys were all waiting for this one. Oh boy, Yo Mama for a $100. Holy crap! I can't believe it. Thank you for the political and cultural analysis that isn't insane and retarded. Increasingly rare on the E-right. Gio, please do a review of 2001, and of course, $100 is my movie fee. 2001: A Space Odyssey. I look forward to your perspective. Well, thank you. It is one of my favorite movies, and I thank you, Yo Mama, from the bottom of my heart. Yo Mama's been with us from day one. I believe I saw Yo Mama in the BTR chats back in the day. So thank you. I will get to eventually. I will get to Space Odyssey. I have a bunch of other reviews to do, and so thank you, Yo Mama. And 10 neck for $2. He sends a chicken and fire.
I wonder if that's the coal mine canary.
Oh yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
The coal mine canary.
He's back.
Fire. Yeah,
the canary's back.
Oh my god, I like that one. And our good friend Patrick Kehoe, the bassist of Based Boomer Theory, sells for $50 Canadian, which is about what for 35
$25 American.
Yeah. Thank you, Patrick. But in my money, it's still $50.
There you go. That's what matters.
There you go. That's what matters. And our good friend Zhang Wei,
which you cannot put up,
for $5. What do you think? What do they do with the excised thing in countries that practice FGM? And you could use your imagination as to what that means. Seems like a waste to throw them.
Awful.
That's like something an anime racist would tweet. Take that
back to Twitter.
That's something that like Avian Graper 1488 would tweet or something.
Good lord.
Oh my god. That's wrong. I'm not even laughing at that. That's terrible. Anyways, Green Glassful, our good friend, for $2. Yo, Big Gio, your friend Peter Juvenile. Thank you, Peter Juvenile. Thank you. Good friend of mine. And John Carter for $4.99. Jess Phillips importing Indians to do the jobs Carl Benjamin wants. Oh my god. Oh, that's terrible.
That's wrong, but that's so funny.
Oh my. Oh.
That's bad. That's bad.
I mean, that's clever, but that's bad.
Clever, funny. I laughed, but not cool. I guess I hate
in Britain, in the UK, they call them Asians. And Asians,
the BAMEs.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Black, Asian minority, whatever.
Yeah, that's. Oh my god.
Ooh.
That's so wrong. And Bolero 393 for $5. F's in the chat for the 1992, 1996, and 2000 candidacies of St. Patrick James Buchanan. F in the chat, boys.
The president we should have had.
I can't believe how clever these risque jokes are in the super chats.
Some of them are pretty good. They're risque, but
yeah, they're pretty good. And Zheng Wei, another for $3. No jippos allowed in the chat, please. What? Gypsies?
I'm not too sure which.
I don't want to know what
wonderful
that means.
Slur he was using there. I'll choose to stay ignorant.
Yeah. Anyways, finally, unless we have entropy ones, Eric Hager for $2. Thoughts on Ortega y Gasset?
Oh, he's talking about Jose Ortega y Gasset. Wasn't he like some commie during the Spanish Revolution?
Yeah, Spanish philosopher and essayist. Also,
I know
monarchy, republicanism, dictatorship.
I know he
philosophy
has
of
some
life.
interesting criticisms or
Oh,
histories on fascism, but I
yeah, he's
don't.
a follower of William James. Interesting.
Oh, I didn't know that. I just know the only book about him that I'm remotely familiar with is a book about Mass Man. That's
Oh
it.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'd have to read
But
more. I'd have to
but
read
I
this more.
I don't know anything about him. But I'd be happy to read some of his stuff because I don't know
Yeah,
really
Revolt of the
anything about.
Masses was his big book. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know anything about him. So
and they say he influenced Heidegger as well, or he
really,
came before Heidegger. Yeah,
I guess maybe we should read him.
Existential Ontology, book by Jose Ortega y Gasset, first published in a series of articles in El Sol in 1929. Book in 1930, English translation, first published 2 years, was authorized by Ortega. In the work, Ortega treats the genesis of mass being analyzed as a constitution en route to describing the rise of power and action of the masses in society. Ortega is thought thorough, quite critical of both the masses and the mass man, of which they are made up, contrasting noble life and common life, and
Are you
exhort,
reading the wiki page?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
specific class has been commonly misconstrued in the English-speaking world. Ortega states the mass man could be from any social background. Specifically is that of the bourgeoisie educated man, satisfied young man, Mr. Satisfied, the specialist who loves, he believes he has it all and extends to the command he has of his subject. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder. I mean, it's definitely applicable to modern day, so I'd have to
Yeah, I would like to
do
read it.
research. Yeah.
So
So there's
uh,
no entropy
maybe we can
chat.
find a PDF of the
Oh
Revolt
yeah,
of the
with some of
Masses
his
and
essays.
cover that.
Yeah, yeah, we could definitely do that.
That'd be fun.
What are you guys saying in the live chat here?
Nothing good, I imagine.
No, it's a dirty job, but someone's got to do this.
So true.
So true. All right, guys. Now this has been a great stream. It's getting late and I'm kind of tired, and the heat is really you know, I
How
don't know,
hot
even
is it
with
up
it,
there for you?
it's like muggy because in southern Ontario, especially when you're in Niagara, it's like everything's muggy, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah, the humidity.
yeah, and so even
But
with
no,
air
like how hot is
conditioning,
it?
it's what is it? Let me
You don't have to do the math. I can do the Celsius to Fahrenheit myself.
it's right now it's 23. Tomorrow today is 29 degrees. Tomorrow will be 27. It's rain. Oh, I hate hot rain.
Oh,
It's
so
always raining.
you're what a nice 70 something degrees Fahrenheit
Yeah,
right now.
yeah, yeah, something like
High in
that.
the 80s
Yeah,
tomorrow. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, with the humidity that's always a bitch.
Well, it's nothing compared to the Texas heat, but I mean, but
Well,
I
we
don't know.
got
Are you in more of a
rained
humid
on
place?
yesterday. Oh no, I wasn't anywhere near it. I'm nowhere near this storm. We had some
Yeah,
friends who were in it, but thankfully everyone that I know is okay.
but there's
Uh,
parts of Texas that are muggy, you know.
well, yeah, I mean, I live in a muggy area. I won't say where, but I live in a
Like near
muggy area.
Louisiana, they have like Shreveport.
Yeah, yeah,
Pretty
yeah. I'm sure that
muggy.
gets, but I mean, it's humid where I'm at, and so
Yeah.
the humidity plus the heat is never fun, especially when it's in the high 90s, close to triple digits Fahrenheit. Never fun.
Mhm.
But you know, you endure, you get used to it.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I'm enjoying my farmer's tan as I'm outside in the sun. It's great.
Can, can you find a PDF of trauma fiction? Because the one in Amazon's like $200.
Holy crap! Yeah, I'll go find us one.
Yeah,
I'll send you a PDF. I think I have it somewhere.
nice.
Oh no, I know. I'll send it to you in tomorrow because I have a copy of it on my work computer.
Nice.
Yeah, I write Substacks and stuff when I'm at lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'll send it
Talking
to you. I'll send it
hours.
to you tomorrow.
All right, boys. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a great episode. So we'll be on Prude's channel next week, and hopefully you can give him as much love and support monetarily. And well, Brent Taylor actually mentioned you if you wanted to give me money to review White Chicks. But anyways, he's gonna do it right now. Like if you wait a few minutes, Brent Taylor is gonna give me money to review White Chicks.
I would
So
love to know what you pull out of your ass for a white
to
chicks
review
review.
White Chicks. Yeah.
Like, oh,
One of the greatest.
everyone's covered, 2001: A Space Odyssey. I'm waiting for the reactionary review of White Chicks.
One of the greatest things I've ever heard of Night Owls
Uh huh.
was by was it Arturo or was it who was it? I think it was either Arturo or it was oh, I forget. He said that you know, I feel like every guy that went to the theater to see White Chicks probably died in Operation Enduring Freedom.
Oh my gosh, that's
That was I remember I
wild.
laughed so hard because it's like you can feel it, right? You know when you just feel something in your heart, it's like, yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, so Brent Taylor, I'm waiting for the $100 to review White Chicks. This has to happen. You can even PayPal me. My PayPal
I'd
is in the
laugh my
link
ass
below.
off if he's like, "Screw Gio reviewing White Chicks."
I'm gonna review
I'm gonna
White
send it to
Chicks.
Prude.
Can you imagine if someone sent you $100 to review White Chicks?
I would play it completely straight.
Oh my
I
god.
would give you the most deadpanned, serious review of White Chicks that you could ever imagine, and I would even record it in a German accent, just because 'cause I'm having that much fun.
Oh my god. Oh.
But no, go send it to Gio. I know that that's what you want. But,
All right. We'll see you next week on. Oh, so I came out with Content Minded, where I did a 3-hour special. Go to my Patreon because all of it's almost all, like, half of it is free, half it's on Patreon and Substack. Only $5 a month. I did this 3-hour mega show on the life and work and art of Nikolai Rorish. So
oh, wow.
yeah. And I also re-released that one episode of DA. And to this week, I'll probably get another genre reviews, probably on the Shunning. And I have to really keep up with Cole Report. And Cole Report, as you all know, is exclusive to the Pay Angels. So yeah. What are you doing, Prude? You had a Substack recently.
Yeah, so I had 2 Substacks out recently, one on, historical pedagogy and AI-generated images. I did a quick take on the election, but it wasn't really just a quick take, it was comparing and contrasting how since 2016, well, even earlier with Reagan and Thatcher, just the elections of the Anglosphere. So where goes Britain? Where goes America? Where goes America? Where does Britain go? Comparing 2016, 2019, 2020, and 2024 elections in the United States and Great Britain, and how that compares and what lies ahead for America as the election lies ahead in November. And then I'm going to have another essay out, hopefully by the end of this week, on the issue of mapping ideology and trauma and using a mix of spinal catastrophism as well as trauma fiction to cover that. And a way to look at that world is mapping our beliefs and ideology. I'm interviewing Shane Swenson next week, so that'll be fun. And then I'm going to be recording, and I'm going to start my series on the essays of the New Right papers that Bob Whitaker put together, because I've been reading them again. There's a lot of stuff in there that feels very new, but also feels incredibly old at the same time. Those will probably be patron exclusives. So we'll see.
Nice.
I may tease the first essay out, and then I'll put the rest up behind the paywall. And then on top of that, I will have a new fishing video out this week.
What did you
So
write
that
about AI images?
I wrote about it on my Substack, but my point was is that I was really just reacting because I saw this video of some black guy in Britain pointing to an obviously AI generated image of like a royal family, and they're like, the secret black royal family. Why don't they teach you this in school? And it's just like you laugh and it sounds dumb, and absolutely it is, but like
Oh man.
that's gonna be as a standard pro or like even neutral position on like Europeans and white people gets destroyed by the academy.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is going to be used to propagate anti-European, anti-Anglosphere content in schools.
Well, I actually have to write about. I have to write a additional appendix in the book about AI hyperslop. So
And then
and
in addition to
globalization.
that, yeah. And in addition to that, all I'm going to be doing is alongside that is going to be a what's the word I'm looking for? So I might record that one or record. Yeah, I'll probably record that and put that out in a video and just use that
Yeah,
as the
like Dave
fishing
does it.
video.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to do more of that because there's a lot of stuff on Substack I need to put to YouTube because if you don't do a YouTube video, the essay doesn't exist apparently.
Oh man.
But that's okay. More stuff to
Yeah.
come. That'll be great.
Well, Eric Hager for $2 finally. If interested, I recommend Dehumanization of Art. Well, actually,
Oh,
I've
okay,
heard of
cool.
that book. Looks pretty good. Seeks to explain the new movement of non-representational art and defend these pioneering artists attempting to escape. Well, that'd be good if you read it in tandem with Clement Greenberg, because Greenberg was, of course, writing about non-representational art at the time as well. So I
Mm.
definitely will buy that book, Eric Hager. Thank you very much. As an artist myself and as a huge fan of non-representational art, I definitely have to buy it. So, anyways, as we always say, we'll catch you next week, and hopefully the content keeps flowing. I wanted to actually write a small piece about that recent Tommy Robinson thing getting arrested, because the history of neocon thought in Canada. But we'll see what happens. Um, as we always say, God bless. Goodbye. Too sweet.
See you, gents.
All right.